Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, I need to finish getting this ready. Well, Sean, thank you for coming down.
Yeah, no problem, man.
It was awesome. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers,
Welcome
man.
to Texas.
Thank
which
you.
You've been here so many times before, I'm finding out.
Yeah, home away from home, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man, thank you for doing this because, originally you were going to fly down and then it just kind of worked out for you to drive down and handle some more business with some other areas of your elaborate portfolio of motorcycling.
yeah, dabble in more than one world for sure.
So how do you even do that? Like, how do you have the bandwidth in your mind to literally tackle so many different far-reaching sides of the motorcycle scene industry from, which we'll talk about later, the Pan American FXR, which you're calling the
FXR America.
Okay, yeah, FXR America,
yeah.
And then the old vintage, like 100-year-old shit.
Well, it's kind of crazy. It kind of fell into it. I've actually, in all reality, I've been more of an antique guy most of my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the FXR thing fits so well, because technically FXRs are older bikes.
Yeah,
and,
they're antiques now.
Yeah, antiques. They haven't made them in a long time. But my first Harley I ever bought with my own money was a 1970 Shovelhead, and I fixed it up with some buddies and rode it to Sturgis in 2015, and just always really liked the old stuff, just so drawn to it. But not until recently have I really got into the really old stuff. It kind of just fell into place. I was working with some guys. I was actually building another FXR, my squid bike that I did last year, and I took a bunch of parts down. There's a powder coater local in my town, and his name's Paul, and I started taking more and more parts to him, and he's like, "What the heck are you doing down here all the time?" He's like, "What is all this stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, they're motorcycle parts." And he's like, "Are you making all this?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm taking them swing arms and just random brake spacers and stuff like that, but. So he starts telling me about his brother that has a lot of antique Harleys, and I'm like, okay, and this goes on for not just like a couple of months. This is like years.
Yeah.
And he's like, started telling me who his brother is and all this other stuff. And his brother's name's Tom Banks. And I find out Tom's got a crazy collection of old Harleys and stuff, and this is all kind of starting to play out over the last couple of years. And then his other brother, George Banks, is real big into antique bikes, and I find out George lives like right down the road from me, like literally like 5 miles from my house. So one day I'm out riding my 68, and I see these guys on the old Harley roll up to a stop sign.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, those are the guys, those guys I've been trying to meet for the last couple of years, And I end up going down to Paul's, the powder coater, and chase him down. I'm like, hey, I just saw your brother. He's like, oh yeah, they're out testing for the chase, the motorcycle chase. And I didn't really know what that was at the time. I mean, I heard of it. I just didn't really kind of understand the concept. And, chase them down. And then these guys come rolling in, and they invite me down to the Georgia shop right down the road there. And I walk in, and there's a 1912 belt drive Harley sitting there and a 1936 VLH on the lift. And I'm just, like, instantly blown away.
Yeah.
It's like stuff.
What was like, so appealing about those bikes that kind of caught your eye?
It's just the history of where we're coming from, it's like your world, the performance baggers, it's like none of this would exist at all without that beginning, and that's kind of like, I've always really been drawn to the old stuff because it's like, you got to think, these guys were doing everything with, pencil and paper, they didn't have machines and CNC equipment, and, it's just, the stuff that they can accomplish is crazy, and when you really start diving into it, and seeing the things that they did and the horsepower they were making and the speeds they were going, like in board track racing and stuff, is crazy, So that's what kind of drew me into it. And I found out that they were getting ready for the motorcycle Cannonball. And long story short, they ended up inviting me on going on to the Cannonball with them as a mechanic. And I was hooked. I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Do they do the Cannonball every year?
No, so the Cannonball is every 2 years.
That's what I was thinking,
And it's all 100
years.
Well, it used to be 100 year. Oh. Well, yeah, it's 100 year, but it used to be like a certain age range, but now it's 100 years. So like every year that it goes up. Okay. So like your bike, you could get a 1 year newer bike every time you go in, if that makes sense. So like
wait. I don't think. Well, with my Patreon growing the way it is right now, maybe with science getting better, I'll be able to ride a performance bagger on the Cannonball in about 100 years.
Yeah, you'll be like 80 years old riding around in your bagger. Someday that'll be an antique. But no, so that's how it kind of all started. But I found out like a couple weeks before we left for the Cannonball, they're like, oh, hey, you want to get in on it? And I'm like, we have no time. We're leaving in 2 weeks. And this is an event that people prep for
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found out 2 weeks before we were in, and that I got in, and Tom actually had another 1913 single laying around. So I went and grabbed that at a shop, and I just started hurrying up and wrenching on it.
How complicated is it to build one of those motors? I know they require a lot of maintenance on those Cannonball runs.
Yeah.
But like, thinking about it, not knowing shit about it, like I think about it like, fuck, like how do you replace parts, or are the parts so generic and whatnot to be able to keep yourself on the road if you have an issue? Or
so there is parts available. Actually, that's the company that I run right now. That's what we do, is we supply parts of that. Mm-hmm. And but there's a lot of stuff, like especially when you're on the Cannonball, you have connections throughout the country. You got these guys that are specialized in what they do in these old motors. So the first step is you make some phone calls and see if anybody can overnight you parts, that kind of thing. Uh-huh. A lot of guys with a Cannonball, you have a pit crew with you in a trailer, so they can actually bring an entire arsenal of parts. Mechanics, they have crew, kind of help you out. But I will say, like when you're on the side of the road and you break down, you have time to fix the bike. It's like there's a sweep truck that follows the entire pack. So you have 100 motorcycles on the run. Yeah. And this last year, we ran from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, all the way to South Padre Island in Texas. And when you're going down, every day is a challenge, obviously. And the earlier the bike, the harder it is. But like first day into the race, I'm 75 miles into it. I just crossed over the Mackinac. I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'm cruising 32, 33 miles an hour, having a good time. And all of a sudden, without any warning, motor just go bam, locks up. Done right there. Fuck. On the side of the road. And instantly, like all that high I had, like first day I'm riding a Cannonball, this is great. It just went right out the window. I was like, oh man, like reality set again, and it's like, holy cow, this is going to be a lot tougher than, we all knew it was going to be tough, but it was like, reality. Yeah. So, but the point of the story is like there's a sweep truck that follows the pack. So you have a certain amount of time you can actually fix the bike. And a lot of guys carry parts and stuff with them in their bags. Like if you throw a valve or something, you can the valves in these early motors are like pockets, so you can actually just pop the pocket out, put another valve in. You can have spares, backups. Your push rods are all external. So unless you have like catastrophic engine failure like I did, there is a lot of stuff you can do on the side of the road. Like a lot of guys are running magnetos. Some guys have redundant systems, like they have another backup mag or something strapped to the bike so they can just swap it out. The guys that are running really early bikes, they're running like belt drive. They can like tie the belts up on the bike. So if you pop a belt, because when you pop a belt on one of these early bikes, you actually have to split the frame. There's like a bracket in the back. Yeah. Pull the wheel, and it could become a big problem. But Dave Courier, he's actually the guy that won the Cannonballs last year. He had like this crazy rake job where he actually rigged the belt to the frame so that when he broke a belt, he just cut zip ties, popped the belt right on the bike because it was already in it, if that makes sense. So.
How do you, that seems like something like a belt would just be something you could easily make newer or more reliable?
Yeah,
or is it,
you buy them new, but reliability is just kind of, you can only go so thick and so heavy with them. Yeah. And then it kind of just goes out the window at some point.
Do they have any kind of grooves or teeth in it? Or
no, they're flat, smooth, like
so
like
it's
a
all
leather
like
belt
a pressure.
Like you wear. Yeah, so you adjust it with the rear wheel. And then you have a tensioner.
Is it the bike?
Oh, yeah, that's my 13, yep.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was when I first brought it back from the shop, and we were getting it ready.
Is that the one you rode?
That's the one I rode, yeah.
Oh, That's badass. And so you said 32 miles an hour. That's a lot about...
That was my safe top speed, which turns out wasn't safe. So I had to stop.
How many gears in the trans?
There is no trans.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah, so you have a primary, where the primary they call your eccentric, and it's just a offset hole, and you actually rotate it, and it adjusts the sprocket to the front to the rear. So it's it's not really.
So there's no neutral if you want to pull in the clutch and just let it coast.
Well, you can pull the clutch in.
Okay.
So you have a direct drive, like it has a engagement for a clutch. So like, and my bike has pedals. Like you don't see it. I don't think I have.
I saw them on the other photo.
Yeah. So when you start and stop, you actually have to pedal the bike. So we actually deemed ourselves. We started calling each other the Antique Outlaws because we got pulled over so many times on this run. It was crazy.
Were they just pulling you over for like
Well, they think you're absolutely nuts. You know, a cop sees you going down the road of this thing, and I'm at a stoplight, and I start pedaling, and then I fire my bike up. Yeah, this is a test. This was my only test that I had. It was a 5-mile trip, and then I went up to Michigan. So this is starting a bike. It'll fire over. You let it warm up, and then you can actually, let it run for a minute. It's on the rear stand right now.
Yeah.
And then you can pop it off the stand and get it going. You start pedaling and take off. This video right here, this is like the first time I ever even rode one of these bikes.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
So we'll get into all the other travels you've done on other bikes, but how different is it, like excitement or accomplishment level? Is the accomplishment so much higher because it's so harder to travel on something like this?
For sure. It's one of those things, obviously you can relate. You do a lot of road tripping on motorcycles, and when you get on a bike, like a newer bike especially, you get on there with the intention of like knowing you're going to go down the road.
Yeah.
You hope in the back of your mind you don't have an issue, but for the most part, you're going to roll up to California, wherever you're going to go, and be pretty confident in what you do. With one of these bikes, I will tell you right now, it's a high, and it can go low as low goes. Because like the entire time you're riding it, especially one that it's not vetted, you just don't know. Every single noise, everything you're doing is like, oh man, when's it gonna break? When's it gonna go?
Yeah, there's like that anxiety, right? That like I felt this on my FXR when I traveled across country with that, where
yeah,
like there was the possibility, so I was always on edge, and it's almost like I wouldn't say that I enjoy it more than rolling just mindlessly down the road, but it just makes you're like, what the fuck was that noise? You're like lifting your helmet up, trying to hear it, but it does kind of put you on like on an edge or on an attention to things, and it makes the whole experience different.
It does.
In my opinion.
It actually, you've road tripped on your FXR, so it's almost more of an accomplishment. It's a bike that you put together. It's your parts.
Yeah.
And the bike like the back of your hand, but when it breaks, you got to figure that out. If it breaks.
And sometimes like you already know where the thing might break at, and so you're already like, while you're on a road for hours on end, you're like, okay, if that goes wrong, then I can do this. I got zip ties in the bag. I got duct tape. I can figure it out. So then it's like, cool.
Yep, and then you feel good,
and then that problem never happens, and it's something that you completely forget.
Yeah, you get back home, and the one you were thinking about the whole time, you're like, oh man, I guess I didn't have to worry about that. But it's fun. But that's same thing with that. It's a high, especially like, luckily, thank God, my buddy Tom that was running his 12, his motor blew up the first day. I rebuilt that motor that night. We had it back on the road the next day. I didn't have the time to work on mine too because we're up to like 2 in the morning.
What's the distance per day that you want to average on the Cannonball?
So it's all set. Every day is planned for you. So every morning you get a map, and the map is a roll, and you have these like rolls on your actual bike, these index rollers, and the first couple of days is usually a light day, just to kind of get everybody used to the whole system, and then the rest of the Cannonball you're rolling. So we would do anywhere from like 250 to 300 miles a day. I think the longest day we had was like 310. At
30 miles an hour.
Yeah. So I think I ended up
10,
making
12 hours a day if you don't break.
Time, yeah. And I had some serious issues because I never even got a chance to ride the bike. So when my first motor blew up, I had a backup motor, and I threw the backup motor in, and it was actually a decent motor as far as power goes, but the problem was it was worn out, so I had a lot of end play in the crank and everything. So I'm like going down the road, and my sprocket's just like clunking in the case and stuff, and I'm like, I can't fix it. I got to ride it, So like I just prayed every minute I was riding it would work, and it got me like 900 and some more miles.
Nice.
And I made some full days, and like getting those any day that you can make like a full day and make your time, because that's the other thing, you're timed. So it's not like I wasn't stopping and having lunch.
Yeah.
I barely even drank water. It's like I'm on the bike just pedaling, and it got to the point, that's why we started getting pulled over so much. We just started running every single stop sign, stoplights, like nothing mattered. I was like, oh, pull me. If there's a cop and I didn't see him, pull me over, It's like, I don't care. I'm not pedaling anymore. I have to, because especially when you get down to like West Virginia, and you're pedaling a 200-pound machine.
They make you go all the way through West Virginia to do the Cannonball?
Well, that particular route, every year they change the route. So like this
Now
next
you're saying
one,
the Mackinac, like going across Mackinac Bridge and going to South Padre, I would think it would be a straight shot, but they...
well, yeah, so we like jagged all over. We actually went down to Myrtle Beach.
Fuck.
Yeah, and then cut back across. It was crazy, man. It was
That's
like
wild.
The total mileage I think was like 4,200 miles.
Can those bikes climb hills and mountains very well? Or
So
you pedaling up that shit, Lance Armstrong?
I was pedaling a lot. Like mine didn't have really good power. Some of the other guys with singles, they had to pedal a little bit, but
yeah.
Tom's motor, he had a nice stroker motor in his 12, and that thing had really good power. We actually clocked him the one day going like 55 on that thing.
Holy
he was
shit.
screaming, yeah.
Slow down, killer.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man, you're making us all look bad, you know? But it was cool. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, the rules of the game are, as long as it's, like, original, like, you have to have original cases. That's pretty much it.
Shit.
So, like, as long as you have an original motor, like, you can't have, like, some crazy aftermarket motor. But, like, you can take a real 13 Harley motor, 12, whatever you're racing, and you can beef it up however you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's legit. You just need to make it so it makes the miles.
Yeah, but how many, parts, aftermarket for things like that,
you'd be surprised. So like this whole world of Cannonball and motorcycle chases opened up the antique plethora, so to say.
Okay.
So it's like really getting these guys that used to have these bikes in the museums and stuff and getting them out and running them. So like, one of our dealers is Carrillo Rod. So like you can actually go get a Carrillo rod made for your bike. Truett and Osborne makes us flywheels.
So say you had a failure of a motor that night, are you splitting the cases and solving issues?
Oh yeah.
Overnight kind of things?
Yeah, like I've actually heard stories like from past Cannonballs because Lonnie Ism Jr. is the one that started the Cannonball in 2010, and like they've been running it every 2 years ever since. And when he passed away, Jason Sims took it over, and he runs it now. But there's stories of guys like actually completely like fixing motors on the side of the road. Like these guys are so. You're talking about some of the best mechanics in the entire planet. And like knowledge base of antique motorcycles being in one location, it's just crazy.
Is everybody pretty helpful with each other?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like the pits at night, the camaraderie. Guys like come over and just out of nowhere and start helping you. You're sitting there reaming a cylinder out, or have your cases split and you're trying to put something else together. They're over there helping you sand this and whatever back way to slap something together and make it work for the next day to get on the line. That's what it's all about. So.
I was, I had a guy in here that did the 100,000 miles in 100 days, and he was talking about doing the Hoka Hay type stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess that would be kind of like our newer bike version of something very strenuous, like what you're doing with the Cannonball.
Right.
But man, like, I get it. Like, that whole experience would be fucking wild, but that's such I guess it's probably not, but just my perspective, my ignorance of it, if you will, it seems like a very hard to understand world of old bikes, because when you see these bikes, like you see the price tags on these things, like I can't, the barrier of entry is so high.
Right.
We're not talking hooligan flat tracking. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So since you brought that up, right? So this is I want to kind of get into that, and I'm glad you actually said that. So my big goal is, I'm a 34-year-old dude. We're all close in the same age. And I wouldn't be able to do any of this without...
Did you graduate high school?
Yeah, man.
Oh, this dude went to school, man. He's fucking smart.
Yeah. No, so it's I don't really have that much money, I'm not like a rich guy by any means, I get by, if I don't care who you are, if you love motorcycles, there's no way you have that much money.
You'll find a way.
Yeah, because you're going to spend some money no matter what you do, but obviously the old bikes is kind of a rich man game, but my big goal is now, and with the business we're running, I want to kind of change that, so when I say those rules with original cases, you start looking and you start learning who these guys are, and you get in this world and you can see where these parts are coming from, and you kind of hear stuff, and you just getting those changed like you are with the performance baggers and all your guys, all your connections. You probably know a lot more about parts that other people don't that want to get into that. So you can go get original sets of cases, for $1,200, $1,000.
Okay.
And in your world, that's not really that much money. Okay. Yeah. To put the rest of the bike together, that's a different story. You're gonna have a lot of money if you want to do original parts. But if you want to build a bike for one of these events, it's definitely within your wheelhouse, you know. And I want to make that more available to guys our age.
So, like, say for instance, like, so you're having to run an original case, but what else has to be original to do a Cannonball?
So really just your cases. I mean,
okay, so you can build a frame as long as it's
so like a lot like that 13 frame you saw in mine.
Yeah.
That's an aftermarket chassis. You know, it's modeled after an actual 13 chassis. It's correct to every degree, but it's just an aftermarket frame, and that stuff's going to be more readily available. And that's stuff that we're going to offer. So it's like I want to make it so that the average person can start getting into this because. Let's be realistic about it. A lot of these guys are older guys, and just since I've started doing it, which hasn't been that long, in this oldest stuff, they're already starting to like back out, like, oh, I'm not doing it the next year. I'm getting too old, or I just don't, I don't have the energy, or want to try something else. So like I want to try to make it, more available to guys our age, and like show people that it's like it's within grasp.
Well, it's one of those things that like when you go down the gambit of all the things that you can experience motorcycle related, I'm at that phase where I'm still enjoying capturing all these corners of the country, but who's to say that at some point that might man, I've been to California every year for the last 5 years. Like, I want a new challenge in motorcycles, and that's what, like Hoka Hay is one, or Cannonball could be a new challenge where, like, I feel like it's like a relationship with motorcycles is just like a relationship with an old lady after you've been with her for 20 years. Like, you're like pulling out cards to do freaky shit together and stuff. It's like you got to
find something new, right?
You got to get creative with motorcycles to stay involved and in love with it, right? And so that probably might be a thing, but it's almost like all the old heads have to make a conscious effort to expose it to younger people.
Right.
Otherwise, things like that do die with that generation.
Yeah, and that's actually, I will say, a lot of the guys, especially like in the Cannonball world, they're all on that same page. We're talking about guys that aren't like the guys that hoard the stuff in their barn and like won't let anybody see it, and like young guys like, oh, we're not going to talk to those guys. Like, these are all really good guys. They actually even started programs like this year for the Chase. They actually just announced the winners a few nights ago. They had sponsors come in, and there's 4 people they're sending on the Chase for free. Like their bike, their supply of the bike, they supply the hotel rooms,
that's cool.
Your entry and everything. And they're really trying to bring.
What about other like smaller events that are more like maybe smaller types of runs that could get more people into it and being around that crowd? I mean, because this from the FXR crowd. It's like it's one thing to see it online, right? But when you're in that parking lot with everybody else, you're like, "Fuck, dude! Like this is real."
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a whole different ball game. Yeah. So there is
maybe like the Sons of Speed is kind of like the other alternative, or something similar, if you will.
Yeah. So like Sons of Speed's like we're trying to build that too, because the want to bring back the vintage racing, because that was like what kind of started all these these motorcycle manufacturers, performance divisions were a thing back then, in the teens. And, they were all reaching for that one goal of 100 miles per hour. And, they hit it. And then they're like, what's next, And then a lot of guys started getting killed because it was absolute insanity. Yeah. And, then they kind of started packing out of it. But it was cool,
Send it, bro.
Yeah, like, dude, going around a 60-degree banked wooden track, like 2 miles long.
The wooden part is what's wild.
It's nuts.
Like,
like, these guys were nuts, man. And, like, you see Excelsior, Henderson, and Harley Davidson and Indian, and they're going around these things at 100 miles an hour. And this is like in the early 1900s, man. I mean, I can't even imagine. And you see the crowds, there's 200,000 people there.
Holy shit.
Like, we're talking events like bigger than today's stuff.
Smallpox started, dude.
I saw Harley and the Davidsons.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. So, it's just crazy, So obviously, I don't think we're ever going to get it. We never know. We might go back to that, but just kind of getting interested in it again and bringing back people to that. But yeah, the AMCA, the Antique Motorcycle Association, they have these things called road runs. If you join the AMCA, you get access to like all their stuff, and they actually like tell you about these smaller road runs. Like, it's like a 2-3 day event, and you all get together, like your buddies, like FXR guys, and you just go out on these old bikes and you just ride around. And
that's cool.
You have like a road captain. They show you, like, they have different stuff planned for the day. So like there's stuff like that too. But yeah, we're always trying to.
So like, how did before all this, like, how did you go from the traveling the world career to, I mean, where did motorcycles come into play for you and the fabrication side of things? So how did that get started?
So that was real young for me. When I was a real little kid, my mom met my stepdad, and he was a big Harley guy. You know, the typical long beard, long hair, ponytail stuff. And you know, here comes this guy. I'm 10. You know, and he comes cruising in on a 79 lowrider. You know,
Hey, who's your mom?
Yeah. You're like, hey, where's your mom at? You know, I'm like, oh, who's this guy? You know. And you know, when you're a kid, you're like, what's going on? You know. And I was like, I thought he was like the coolest dude in the world, you know? Yeah. So he comes rolling in on a Harley. But when he moved in with us, I'll never forget, dude. Like, kicks the front door open, and here comes the motorcycle in the house.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I'm like, what the, you know, I don't have like a father figure in my life. So I'm like, what is going on? You know, he's like, oh, motorcycles stay in the house, you know?
That sounds like a Joe kid of your generation.
Yeah, pretty much, dude. It's funny because Joe actually, my FLH, like, he had one of those in his family, like same bike, and he comes walking to my garage one day, and he's like, oh man, I'm gonna cry right now. He's like, I love those bikes, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like kind of how it all started for me. I was riding on the back and stuff with him. I used to go to like all these like we did the wall, Rolling Thunder in DC. Like I was young when we did that, and then I obviously wanted to start riding, and I was too young to ride a real bike. So like I started getting like mini bikes and then chopping them up, and I didn't know how to do anything. So like one of his best friends is kind of like the Jesse James, like he knows how to do everything, and we'd go down to his house in Kinsman, Ohio. His name's Danny White. We go down there, and he like would show me how to like chop the frame up, and we'd like weld tubing on it and make choppers, because that was back in the day when Discovery Channel was huge with like biker build off, and all everybody wanted to do was choppers. So I was like chopping mini bikes. Yeah. And you know, I'm not a painter by any means. I can't paint, but I was painting flames on the tank, and you know, it's kind of cool. I actually still have that mini bike.
That's dope.
But yeah, so we'd ride on the back roads. We had dirt roads around our house, so we'd be a group of guys riding mini bikes around, and that was where it all started for me. And then when I got a little bit older, I turned 15. My mom had a Harley that my stepdad bought her, and she didn't really like riding it. So, you know, they're like, well, Sean can ride it. Let's give it to Sean. So when I was 15, I had an 88, 883 Sportster.
Oh, dude.
And I'm riding that to high school. You know, I was a bad dude. I was like, you know,
that's
I didn't
like
know
that's like the one check in the box that I wish I would have been able to experience, is being in high school with a motorcycle.
Yeah, like
even if that bitch was a Honda.
Like, it didn't matter what it was, dude. Any kind of wheels that ran. Yeah. It could have been, like you said, it could have been anything. And I, like, when I say I was a bad dude, I was not a bad dude by any means. I thought I was an idiot, but you know, having a motorcycle made me feel way cooler than I actually was.
It still happens for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it never really went away. I guess we're all still kind of doing grass.
You ever like drive down the road and see a group of bikes go by and go like, God damn, we look stupid.
Yeah. Matching
vests. There's a whip flying in the air. Dude. Everybody's looking mad. Like, no, they're having fun. Like, smile, dude. Like, you're on a motorcycle. You know what I mean?
You have, like, this persona. Like, I don't really tell people that I'm a biker because, like, I don't like to be associated with bikers. But, you know, I love motorcycles, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where it all started. And as far as the fabrication goes, I dabbled in a little bit when I was younger. You know, I was tearing, like, Brings and Stratton motors down when I was a kid in the basement.
Yeah.
You know, putting them together. They wouldn't run, or if they would run, they wouldn't run long kind of thing. And if they broke, I had to figure out why.
Yeah.
So that's where, like, the whole wrenching started. And then when I got older, I actually ended up going, like, to weld school. And I worked at a factory, like, building these big furnaces and stuff, welding these huge 90-foot furnaces. And
was this up in Erie area?
Yeah, so I was always up there in Erie. And actually, I worked right across from GE. It was the factory I was at. Mm-hmm. And then where I really kind of started learning more and more was I got a job at the place, actually, I just left recently. I started there on the very bottom of the floor, man. I went in at like $13 an hour. And, you know, was machining hydraulic rods and pistons and building hydraulic cylinders. And, you know, I was a fab guy, and here I am doing machine work now, which I really liked it because I knew machining from high school. Yeah. Because I, like, dabbled in it a little bit. But it really kind of honed my skills on, like, how to actually use the machines correctly.
Like lathes and mills and stuff. Yeah,
lathes and mills. And, like, once you get, like, welding down, and you get, like, your fabrication, like, the concept of it down, and then you actually learn how to run some, like, manual machines, like, it makes you kind of dangerous because you can really do a lot of things that you wouldn't really think about doing.
Like a mill, lathe, and a welder, you can pretty much
build well, anything. That's what I'm doing right. Like, if you come to my shop, I don't have, like, you know, I don't have a tool that most people can't, like, acquire. You know, I don't have, like, big fancy CNC mills or anything. The one thing I will say is we have design software, and that's where like my best friend Kevin, he's the one I'm building the bike with. You know, like when we come up with a crazy idea, you know, I'll be like, this is what we need to do, and we'll draw it out. He'll come over and like we'll plan it all out and get all the dimensions, and then he'll take and 3D model it, and then we send it out and we get a laser cut. So like that's kind of how we do a lot of our stuff now. You know, we have access to high dollar machines in that regard, but you know, that's where we kind of developed. You start out making stuff by hand. I mean, we still make a lot of parts by hand too, because lead time for manufacturing stuff right now is absolutely out of control. But
so I mean, like, what were you doing in the other job? I mean, that. So
I started out building hydraulic cylinders, repairing hydraulics, and then building like hydraulic pump stands and stuff. With my brother and I worked together, and I went from that to doing field service in locomotives. We did like layover heating systems for locomotives.
Yeah.
And I got out in the field, and I actually started making like a lot of friends with all these customers because they started sending me all over the world. You know, so like I'd go, you know, overseas, I'd go all over the United States, anywhere they needed me, where there was locomotive or an issue, I'd go. And I really started picking up like. I wasn't just focused on the systems that we did. I would like go sit in the cab and listen to the guys talk about how the rest of the locomotive worked and kind of like learn the whole thing as much as I can. I'm not saying I'm a locomotive expert, but you know, I try to pick up as much knowledge as I can. So that made me a little bit more dangerous in the field of knowing, you know, if somebody's having an issue with something, I can try to figure it out elsewhere outside of just what I sell you. So I started developing a lot of relationships with these guys and these customers, and you know, they kind of wanted to bypass our sales guys and just go with me. Yeah. So I, you know, over a period of time, this didn't happen overnight. I finally got the, you know, the gump to be like, hey guys, like, you know, I'm not going to keep doing this and making you guys like all this money and not be sales. Like, I'm not dumb. I know sales guys get commission. Yeah. You know, I know it's a whole different ball game. So I worked my way into sales and then like field engineering kind of thing. And that's what I did up until recently. You know, I kept traveling all over the world and stuff, but I just didn't wrench like I used to for the job. And it was cool traveling, but it gets old after a while. Like I love doing it for myself. Yeah. But like I got real tired of it for other people and stuff. But
but see, I mean, like, what kind of countries were you going to? Mainly European type countries, or
we'd go over to Europe. Like Asia was a big one. We'd go like China and South Korea and stuff like that. And you know, our big customers were there. Germany, Estonia, Turkey was like another one we'd go to. But like, it was just one of those things where that wasn't all the time. That was more like hit and miss. But the States was heavy. Like, you know, before I even turned 30, I think I was in every state except Hawaii and Alaska. I mean, we were just all over the place. And there was times, like I was telling you earlier, I'd get on a plane like every single Monday and fly down here to DFW. Oh. Like I did that for like 2 months straight. I'd be here from Monday to Friday, get back on a plane Friday, fly home for the weekend. Yeah. And then next Monday do it all over again. So it was like I was commuting to Dallas to work.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Were you working up at the Jeep setup?
I went there quite a bit, but I didn't physically work there. They were just one of our customers. Okay. I actually worked for a railroad called BNSF. They were like one of our big customers. So.
Trust me, I have a railroad track that goes right in front of my house.
Oh, so you know them well.
Yeah. It doesn't really bother me. It's like weird because like I used to live in a neighborhood where the train was like maybe a mile away. Yep. And I would hear it every night, just the horn, right? But now I have railroad tracks literally like 400 feet, maybe 500-600 feet in front of my house. Okay. Like I never hear it. I hear the tracks, right? Moving and like stuff, I hear like the machinery on the tracks kind of thing, but like I don't hear it like blowing the horn. Obviously, they're not doing it right in the neighborhood right there. But
it becomes like almost like a background noise. You know? It's the same thing like when you're working on them all the time. When you're actually up in those things, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 horsepower, and it's just sitting there idling at 800 RPM, giant diesel engine. It literally like shakes your eyeballs in your head. Wow. But like there's times like you just get so used to that rumbling noise that like actually put you to sleep. Like you're in the cab of one. Trust me, I've been in many locomotives over the time, like sleeping in them at 2 a.m, freaking pass out in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. Like,
I can't.
Yeah, just be like I'm going down, man. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things you get used to. You know, it's like a.
So basically, so while you were still doing that job, like the motorcycle thing started getting more dominant?
I always did motorcycles. So that was the thing. Like I was always building in the background. Obviously, I had a full-time job just like everybody else. I just did it for pleasure, more or less. But You know, we started building more and more. I would work on like my FLH. I did that in 2015. We took it all down. My other best friend Brian Woods Goods. He does all my paint work and stuff for us.
Yeah.
It's actually Kevin's brother. He painted the bike, and then I got it all back together. Rode it to Sturgis. I got the motorcycle from my stepdad's, one of his good
The
buddies.
72 FLH?
70.
70.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it got real tired, you know. Like on the way back, I actually detonated the points. I was still running points and condenser for my ignition. And it left me stranded in, what was it? It was like Sleepy Eye, Minnesota or something. Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. So I ended up riding this dude's like brand new Ultra Classic the rest of the way home because he didn't want to ride anymore. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll ride your Ultralight, you know. So I got on that thing and I'm cruising back home and I'm like rethinking my life decisions, you know. I'm like, man, this thing's got a full surround sound stereo and everything. But no, I always
Surround sound.
surround sound, like the speakers around my head and stuff. And you know, I'm used to the old stuff, so I was like, oh man, this is great. Rode like a couch. But I was always doing that. And then I'm trying to think like where it really started getting big, because like when I'm trying 21, I did a chopper. I did like a hardtail chopper. That's actually how I met Kevin and those guys at Power Drives. I rode that in, and they were like, "Oh, who's this guy?" You know, because he was always big into bikes. And then our buddy John Long, he's actually from Erie.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, and he's like best friends with all Kevin and all those guys. And like John Long and our buddy Cowboy and Kevin and Brian, well, they started like getting real big into FXRs. And I'm like, you know, it took I will say this, it took me a really long time to dive in, because I was always like, I'll stick with my shovel head, you know.
Yeah.
And these guys are like riding these things around. They start getting more and more popular, because like this is before the real big cult phenomenon took on, you know. And when I rode to Sturgis in 2015, JL came out and met us at our house, and that's where I first met Joe. Mm-hmm. And you know, those guys are real big in FXRs, being from California and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, these things are cool, you know. And I met Lump. I don't know if you ever heard of Lump, but he's one of the original Triple Crown guys with Joe and John and them guys. And I met those guys out there, and I liked them. I just still wasn't like really drinking the Kool-Aid yet, so to speak. Yeah. And then I finally, like, Kevin found this FXR. It was down right in the base of West Virginia, and it was $1,000. 1,500 original mile FXR. And the reason it was $1,000 is because it sat in a water-filled basement. And the dude bought it brand new, one-owner bike, rode it for 1,500 miles, put it down there, it got wet, and he let it sit there rest of its life. 82, first year FXR shovelhead. So Kevin's like, oh, let's go get it. You know, he found it, so he got the dibs on it. So we go down there, we pick the thing up, and it is a pile of rust. I'm like, you know, everything on it is rust, head to toe. I mean, it was bad. But it was $1,000 FXR with a title. Mm-hmm. The frame wasn't rotted. It was all just surface rust, you know, just really bad pitting and stuff. So we picked it up, and Kevin had it for a couple years. And that entire time that he had it, I'm sitting there poking him. I'm like, hey, why don't you sell me that FXR? Why don't you sell me that FXR? Because I'm like, I didn't want to, at that time, I didn't just jump all in and go buy a crazy expensive one. Or
what time was it? What time frame was this?
This is, oh man, I think probably like 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, so they're still cheap.
Way cheaper than they are now, big time. So I was like, okay, you know, like I'm gonna keep poking. So finally he gives in. He goes, all right, you know, I'll sell you this FXR with one deal. And I was like, all right, what's the deal? He's like, you know, if you ever go to sell it, you have to sell it back to me. Because, you know, I never like planned on building this bike the way it ended up turning out. So I get the FXR, and I actually have it for a while. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It was a pile, man. So it's actually kind of cool.
That right there goes for $10,000 now. And don't fucking lowball him. He knows what he has.
Yeah.
For sale, not on sale.
Hey, ran well parked, right? Yeah, it sure did, dude. Which is actually crazy. So a side story of this bike, I put the battery tender on it, and I turned the key, and every single light came on. Everything worked. Dude, honestly, I pulled the dips. It was underwater, just like not all the way. So like the motor didn't even have water in it. Like the oil was still like brand new in this bike. Original factory moto.
82.
Yeah. So here I am like pinned with a decision. Like, what do I do with this bike? You know, the purists are going to hate me if I do anything besides just restore it. But then this other side of me is, I finally have an FXR. Why am I going to build a bike that's going to cost me a stupid amount of money just to get it back to what it should be and still not have a good enough bike to go road tripping across country.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to build a bike that was a touring bike, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I wanted to be able to rip around the country on it. So, yeah, that's the motor. I still have it sitting there. It's crazy. 1,500-mile shovel head. Original points cover, everything. But, so we started kicking around ideas, and this whole entire bike kind of just like all the, I didn't have a plan. I wasn't like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to build. It was just like, oh, a buddy would chime in. I got this, or somebody's got this. So my buddy Cowboy comes to me one day, and he goes, hey, man, I got a twin cam platform I'll sell to you. And I'm like, okay, like how much, you know? So he offers me a twin cam, early twin cam 88 with a transmission, FLT trans for $2,000. And I'm like, well, you can't really beat that. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. So then I'm like, okay, I guess I'm building a twin cam FXR. You know, I wasn't like, I screw Evo, I hate Evo. It's like, that wasn't my intention. You know, I was just building it with what I had. So I get the twin cam from him, and then I start kicking around some different ideas, and I'm like, all right, so this one I'm gonna run here, this one I'm gonna run here. So ended up running like the Legends. I did the 39mm front end on it, did Legend cartridges in it. I ended up going, as I started progressing build, I'm like, well, if I'm gonna build it, I'm going to build it right, you know?
That's how it always happens.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm not going to do all this work for one thing.
Well, since I'm here.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, let's start doing it up. So, and then I was like, well, I don't want to just run a regular swing arm. You know, that's what everybody does. Or do they go buy a swing arm? Like, I'm not going to buy one. I'll build one. So then we built the swing arm. You know, I fabbed it up. And then I had to make it even harder. I had 7-spoke wheels off of factory Sportster racer from like the late 70s. They only ran for like 4 years. XLCHR wheels, 7-spoke. 7-spoke Morris mags. And I had a set, so I'm like, well, let's adapt them to this bike. Mm-hmm. So the front was super easy. It was the back that was the challenge, because the back is an 8-bolt drum. So we had to take the whole drum assembly off and machine a 5 to an 8-bolt adapter to make the rear end even work. And with
how
the
narrow was the wheel?
It was
like normal.
Yeah,
width?
it was a normal width, but it was like the spacer and everything we had to do to make this, because I wanted to run belt for touring. It'd be less maintenance than a chain.
Yeah.
With the pulley and everything I had, and then plus it made it even harder. I wanted to run Tokiko brakes on it, so we made our own brake brackets. We made our own discs. Like we didn't run any like factory discs or anything. We actually made our own rotors. So everything was like one off. The front one I didn't do dual disc because that's what everybody was doing.
So which bike is this total?
This is the Squid bike.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was
the
thinking.
Nautilus, yeah. And that was kind of the story. What I was leading into the story is everybody's like, why did you paint a squid on your bike? And I'm like, because the day that we pulled it out of the water-filled basement, I deemed it the Nautilus. Well, even when I didn't own it, I was like, it's under the water.
Here's the whole start to beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, FXR Mike was telling me how like the story behind this was pretty badass. So, I mean, you pull it out of a basement. It was covered in water.
Yeah.
You named it there while you didn't own it at the time.
I didn't even own it. I called it the Nautilus.
God damn, that shit came out. So what'd you end up doing? So you had to make some like mounting tabs for the fairing setup, right? Because then they didn't come with them on those bikes, right?
Yeah, so the 82 didn't have the tabs for the RT fairing because the RT didn't come until 83. So I actually had to get measurements and the bungs, and I had to weld them on and make it work, which actually came out really good. I think actually we got the measurements from Michael Beeland. He had like a post somewhere on like Facebook or something where he measured a stock one and posted it. So I pulled those measurements and welded them on it.
Oh, that's rad.
It was cool. It lined right up.
And so you twin cam 82 FXR, still running a pulley.
Yep.
How do you have any pictures of swing arm at all on there?
On my Instagram, I should
Pop it up any second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be dope to see that.
Those pictures there, that's like right when I had it. This was the first time I ever rode the bike in Florida because we
dude, those 7-spokes look pretty fucking dope on there. To be honest with you,
they're nice. I really like them.
Gold tubes, nice sport fender.
Yep. Yeah, the bike turned out. I like it, and it's funny because like I've never had a single person. I rode that bike all over the country. I did 22,000 miles on that bike last year.
Nice.
And not a single person in person at any event was ever like, I do not like that bike. Everybody loved it. The only hate I ever got on it was online. Like, people with social media.
Yeah, because keyboard warriors.
Yeah, exactly. So I was actually surprised, it was pretty cool. Yeah, that's when we were announcing the Triple Crown. That's so that's Kevin on the left and our buddy Cowboy on the right.
So what was the what made you want to do the Triple Crown?
That was another thing, man. It was like not playing. So I started. All right, so this is how it works. So I had the Nautilus done. I was like, I built this bike for touring, and I'm thinking to myself, we already had Sturgis locked down. We already had the East Coast Jam locked down. We were doing those no matter what.
Yeah.
The only thing we weren't going to do was the West Coast Jam. So I called Kevin. And actually, we're on a road trip together. I'm like, listen, man. I was like, we're already doing 2 of the 3. Why don't we just do the West Coast? He's like, I don't know. He didn't really want to do it. And I'm like, long story short, I ended up just was like, okay, if you don't do it, I'm doing it. Like, so you're gonna really be sad, when I'm like, hey, dude,
you're one away from the
and I did it, and you didn't do it.
Is there like a legit anything that they give you or somebody gives you like some kind of like plaque or fucking at least a poker chip, like a Harley poker chip or something?
So it's kind of crazy. So Nick actually posted like a thing on his he actually just posted a new one today for this year, but he posted a thing on his page and was like, hey, anybody that does a Triple Crown, we're gonna have these sponsors. And that was cool. I was like, that's cool, but we just wanted to do it for bragging rights, because up until that point only 4 people had done it. You had Joe, John Long, Clint, and Lump. They're the only 4 people have ever done it. So
last year was also the year the Idaho dudes did it too, right? What was their names again? The guys, they come to the camp out.
Is it Wood Grain FXR?
I think so. Wood Grain FXR.
Oh no, I think he's talking about doing it this year.
I thought they did it last year.
Because I just saw a post. I think he just posted today that he was talking about doing it.
Because he was. I mean, they were at Sturgis last year with us because they camped with us. Remember?
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be a weird one because I think that they did it last year, but I could be wrong.
They didn't announce it or something. I don't know. They might have. I don't know. But yeah, so that was kind of like how it all went out. And then I think the guys that did it the first time, somebody made them some kind of pendant or a ring or something. I can't remember what it was. So actually, when we got it done, Kevin he ordered us Triple Crown rings. They made some really cool ones, and we were actually.
That homeboy, he said he's doing it this year. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I said.
Just to reset, what's the Triple Crown again?
So the Triple Crown is an FXR thing where you go East Coast Jam, West Coast Jam, and Sturgis all in the same year.
Yeah.
All on your FXR. You can't break down. Well, I mean, you can break down, but you cannot at any point in time trailer your bike. And you have to go there and back from the event. Mm-hmm. So, every event we did, we rode to the event and back to our house. To the event, back to our house. We didn't just go.
You can't do it in one run.
No.
Yeah.
That's how.
That makes sense because technically the 2 events are pretty close. Honestly, if you can get off work for 2 months, you can almost do all 3 events.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's kind of at the time I was still working for my other job, and I worked from home, so it was
Was that your first real long distance traveling?
Oh yeah.
On motorcycle?
The only other time I ever did real long distance was Sturgis, and that was on my shovel head.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with the Cannonball. I was like, well, when am I gonna break? So,
yeah.
But this was my first full out touring, and it's addicting. You just want to keep doing it after that. So.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I guess I was wrong. I thought that they had done it already, but I got to listen better. I'm working on it. But no, that's rad. I mean, when you start traveling, it's this weird thing. It's, doing some. As lucky as we are being in Texas, to go travel somewhere, we're almost halfway to everywhere. You essentially being on the East Coast, the West Coast Jam is a fucking haul for you.
Right.
But honestly, all 3 of those things for us isn't too bad. I mean, they're all 1,000 miles away at least.
Yeah, because Texas is huge, So it's everywhere you go in any direction is kind of far. I mean,
we have if you take Dallas and you take 1,000 miles and you just draw a big circle. We hit Sturgis. We hit the old East Coast Jam.
Right.
We hit Phoenix. We have a good 1,000-mile radius from here.
Right.
Where,
which 1,000 miles is nice. That's a good.
Yeah, it's
good job.
I've gotten so accustomed to just doing 1,000 miles to get out of here. Not that every time I do it, I'm right at 1,000 miles. Sometimes it's 1,080. Sometimes it's 970.
Right.
There's nothing worse than cutting your bike off at 970 miles for the night. You're
yeah, you got to go that extra.
It's
yeah.
I'm just gonna say I did it.
Yeah,
Fuck 'em.
You got to do it.
I'm just gonna lie.
Yeah.
This is where I made the decision to fucking be a liar.
You're right. No, it was 1,000.
Yeah. But no, I mean it's a weird one. But this whole Virginia City thing, man. seeing it pop up, like the more I know about that area, I've been, like I said, I was telling you about the Highway 50.
Yeah.
I was watching some YouTube videos about that whole area and how it was so much a part of the Pony Express, and which only lasts for a year until the Telegraph was made.
Yep.
It's some weird thing where they made this whole route for the Pony Express, and then a year later it was gone.
Right.
They had all these outposts and shit for everything, and it was fascinating. It was a great YouTube video, and I have no idea where it is. If you just fucking Google it, you'll probably figure it out. But the Virginia City thing, being right there on the eastern slope of all those mountains there from California and shit, it's like I want to come to it, man. Like, I feel like for me, Sturgis is like a must every year. Like, I have to be there. I feel like when I miss Sturgis, I feel like I'm missing out. Like, that's the biggest FOMO I ever have. Right. Is like, if I'm not at Sturgis, I feel like, you know, like I died or some shit. Like, it's
right.
weird.
I mean, if you're in the industry, it's kind of the staple of the industry, right? I mean,
you just got to show up every year to let people know, like, yeah, I'm still in business.
Yeah, because like if the time you don't show up, they're gonna be like, hey, like, where's the fast?
Hey, is he still going?
What are they doing?
But with that, all the like this Virginia City thing, I think it's in August, right?
Yeah, into August.
So, you know, in our world of the type of bikes we're running, like most of us are going to Milwaukee for the hometown rally,
right.
And then the BRL is going to be there this year. So a lot of us got to go to that, right? So there's this part of me that, like, you know, after talking with Josh and seeing how they're doing the awards, and like, to be honest with you, you know, not to talk shit about Born Free, and this is maybe like if Born Free was to progress in this way, to kind of shine light on not just the chopper builders, but people that are like building the FXR. So having the category of FXRs and the choppers, and having invited builders is, I think it's rad. Like
it is. It's cool. I was actually kind of pumped when I heard about it, because they did Virginia City last year.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and I didn't get to go. Obviously, we just rode out there, and like the schedule of going out there a couple times in the same year is pretty tough. But you know, it looked like it was a really good time.
Yeah.
You know? And then when Nick was like, "Oh, we're gonna do like a build off thing," I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
You know, because that looked like a really good time, and I really liked like you said, I like the idea with the FXR, kind of shine light to that a little bit more.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's cool because, like I said, it kind of, you know, when you have guys that are building bikes to the level of like what you're building with the FXR America.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
just a code name. Like, honestly, I don't. I mean, that's what we're calling it, but.
That's a good fucking. It's a good one.
Well, yeah, because it's an FXR with a Pan America, so that's what we kind of wanted to call it, the FXR America.
I feel like I said, I love Born Free. I think it's amazing, and I love the fact that San Diego Customs also has that extra connection to be able to have like the performance baggers, the FXRs, the Dynas, and all that. But like, it would be dope if there was some kind of like invited builder aspect to some of these shows, right?
Right.
Because the challenge of like when you become an invited builder or something, like it puts a challenge under you, no matter what type of bike you're building. We're like, shit, I'm invited to go compete with my peers,
right,
in a place that's going to be that, like, you know, I'm kind of, you know, what I'm doing is kind of the star of this event, right?
Yeah,
like I want to show the fuck up with something badass.
Well, and that's kind of what happens, you know, when somebody kind of, you're getting put on the spot. It's no longer just what you think you can accomplish.
Yeah.
Or, you know, hey, I'm going to build this for the fun of it. It becomes more of a, oh crap, like this is real now, and it also gives you a very serious deadline. Like, now you got to get it done.
Yeah, you have to. You got to show up, man.
Oh, I'm just going to build this and I'll get to it. You know, I got this other bike I'm working on. I'll get to it. You know? So, yeah, it becomes pretty serious. So,
you know, I jokingly, we did this podcast with Cruzy a couple months ago, and I'm really proud of my I just smoked weed on the podcast, and I'm not really good at doing that. Mm-hmm. But I said something that I'm going to toot my own horn here, but you know, I said that, you know, building FXRs or customizing them is a rite of passage, in my opinion, to a lot of new generation bike builders, right? Like, that bike has so many variations of it, so many different styles, so many different. It's been a part of almost every major brand that's still present today has an FXR in their arsenal, right? So it's kind of like I said, it's a rite of passage for somebody to come out of MMI that wants to be a bike builder, or somebody that's like in their garage, hey, tinker on this.
Right.
If you can make that cool, you can almost make anything cool.
Right, because
Not in a bad way. It's not hard, but
right.
you
I know what you're saying. Like, it's you're taking a bike that the generation it was built for threw them away in a sense.
Exactly.
You know? And the guys that liked them, they still love them. I mean, that's what's awesome about the FXR world is you're hanging out with all these dudes like our age and your buddies and stuff, and then all of a sudden here comes like the guys in like their 60s are like, I've been riding FXR since it's brand new.
We get it, Boomer.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, and a lot of times those guys are cool. They're like, hey,
are.
what's up? So I love them. And the real reason I actually ride them is not just because of the following and they really are a fun ride bike.
Yeah, they are.
They're light. They they snap
They're
around
nimble.
the turns.
Yeah.
And like when you have mine, we went out west completely loaded down. We had tents, sleeping bags, all our gear, everything we needed, and it was like, no problem.
So how was that trip leaving from where you're at to go to that West Coast Jam? Like what was like just run me through that trip. What was it like?
So it was nerve wracking. I'll tell you that, because we'd got the East Coast Jam down, and at that point that was the longest ride I made on the new bike, and I did have an issue. We got out to the East Coast Jam. Everything was good there. We, the first night we were there, we partied really hard, obviously. Woke up the next day. We went for a not real long, but a long ride. And the East Coast Jam is up in, this one was. It was up in the mountains, up in the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
And we went down some crazy steep roads and stuff. I'm talking like
this is last year, right?
Yeah, it's last year.
So we were just skating by you guys. We were just left New York. We were in New York City, and we
should have stopped, man.
Well, we thought about it. No, well, it was off the path, and we had already scheduled all these Airbnbs.
Oh, so
because we were going to Maine.
Okay.
With our little group thing. So,
I got you.
Yeah. So we ended up hanging out with Joe Kidd in Boston.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw when you guys met. Well, that was after, right?
Dude, he held court in that Airbnb. It was some of the funniest stories I ever heard in my life.
He's good at that, man.
That dude he could. Yeah.
No, he is. He's good at it. But yeah, so that was like, we're riding some like super steep roads, and I'll never forget this one hill, man. We got on this hill, and I'm like super hungover. Not feeling my best, and we're going down it, and it's to the point where it's so steep that it's not comfortable to get off the bike. Like there's no part of me that is going to stop my bike and get off.
Oh.
And this guy is, that's leading the pack. He just like pulls over in this like on this ravine to take a picture. All these bikes, and I'm like, dude, I can't stop. Like this thing's like straight down. I don't know what the percent of grade was or anything, but I'm going and I'm riding my brakes down because we're putting at this point. And all of a sudden, I feel my back brake just go away. It's gone. And I'm like, well, that's not good, And I can't stop and look at it because you have nowhere. You can't put your bike on your kickstand; it'll fall right down the hill. So I just ride it down. We were joking the whole way down because Kevin and I had our helmet mics on. We're talking to each other. We just like shut the bikes off and coasted down this hill. We're going like 50 miles an hour. Get to the bottom of the hill, and I get off, and I look at my brake. And I just got brake fluid pouring out of my rear caliper. Well, I got so hot. It just like blew my seals right out of the caliper. Ooh. And I was like, well, this ain't good, I don't have seals to back it up. And then at the top of it, my rear rotor that I made, we made them out of stainless. It was warped and blued and all messed up. I'm like, oh man, this ain't good. So long story short, I just disconnected the rear brake, pulled it, no more brake because it was all messed up. And so, that was our first night there. Or first day there, I should say. We still had a whole nother night, and then I had to ride, it was like 8 hours home or something like that.
Yeah.
So I rode all the way home with a front brake, which, whatever, it worked, it got me home. So I had that in the back of my head. I'm like, well, now I got to fix this. So what we ended up doing was I made my rotor out of a thicker material because I found out that the material I used was just a little bit too thin. We were trying to save some weight and everything else. So I had that kind of like, oh, I hope this works. I actually brought a whole nother brake rebuild kit with me. I had like as much parts as you can. Everybody jokes you got to ride with a guy with an FXR, you're going to have spare parts, because you're always fixing stuff. But that was the only issue I ever had really with that bike was that brake. When we loaded everything down, Cowboy had his RT, which I never really dabbled on that on this podcast, but it was like his bike is the first RT that we ever like full blown custom made. Like his bike was, hand built from, that was the thing we really dived into. Kevin and I and Cowboy built that bike, and Kevin's one like the mastermind behind it. But he actually ran a KTM front end on that thing, super high bars. And I built the rear swing arm, and this was a long time ago. Like, this is before anybody was really customizing FXRs like they are today. You know, this is like, oh man, I'm trying to remember when we built that bike. I think it was like 9-10 years ago.
God damn.
So I built this super long extended swing arm on it, and then we had to make like I still worked at Power Drives at the time, so I was making all the axles and adjusters, and Kevin's like giving me prints. He's the model and everything, and he's the one that figured out how to adapt the front end, the KTM front of this bike. So he had the first original like full blown custom RT that I know of.
Yeah.
That was to that grade because he had this crazy like dirt bike fender. He made this thing like the jump. Like he finished at 20 like the night before. Sturgis and like rode it all the way out west and then went all the way to Colorado and just like bombed all over the country on it. But so he was riding with us and that we had to talk him into doing the Triple Crown with us, which wasn't hard. We're like, hey, we're doing it. And he's like, okay. Like, gotta get my bike ready because I don't know if it's gonna make it. So that was the only bike we ever really had any kind of tweaks with, and it wasn't that bad. Like he had his biggest problem was he had an Ultima motor in it. And
that's what I had in that.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you like it?
My dumbass didn't know what I was buying, so.
Okay.
FXR Mike told me, hey, you know a lot of these dudes that used to be around in the chopper scene, so, you know, and this is when I was building my FXR, he was like, just hit them up and see if they got any old Evo motors laying around, because all these chopper guys that were building choppers started building baggers.
Right.
So a lot of them still had, like, Evo motors laying around from building choppers.
Right.
Lo and behold, first guy hit up, he's like, yeah, I have a 113 laying right here. And I'm like,
Ding.
And I just assumed when he said 113, he said I got a 113 El Bruto motor, and I'm like, sounds like an SNS to me. So
right.
I didn't even pay attention to it, right? And I was like, yeah, I'll buy it. So it was like $2,500. Not a bad deal.
No,
right?
That's not a bad deal.
And then I wanted to Cerakote it because I Cerakoted the entire motor, everything gray.
Yeah, that bike is sick.
And so what happened was one day I was taking it apart, and I thought I was just gonna like take off the rockers and just do the cylinders and heads. Everything is one is Cerakote because I've done that before and it'll hold up.
Okay.
And I have to split all the cases.
Right.
Well, then I was like, you know what, man? Like, I don't know how to. I honestly, and to this day, I've never pulled a cam out of an Evo, so I don't know. I know twin cams, M8s like the back of my hand.
Right.
Oil pumps, I've never fucked with those.
Yeah.
So
it's just timing, you know. It's just lining everything up.
So I never fucked with it. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take it to my buddy Mark, Texas Performance. So I went down there one night with this motor that I half-assed pulled apart. So hey man, let's just split the cases.
Yeah.
Let's do it right.
Yep.
So he splits the cases, and he goes, "Why does your crank say Ultima?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's supposed to be an SNS."
You didn't know.
I didn't even think it. Then whenever he was like, "No, this is an Ultima motor, dude," I was like, "Fuck." I had no idea. Like I heard Ultimas were bad.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, can you rebuild this? This is a brand new motor, never ridden. I was like, can you put this back together like with quality, right? And I got 22,000 miles out of that motor in 1 year.
Okay.
I built it in June, so I built it in June, took it to Rot Rally.
Okay.
I had a brake issue, so I couldn't ride it there, so I had to trailer it down there. Soon as we got home, someone told me, he's like, you got to take those Tokikos and put them high upside down and bleed them that way instead of on the caliper.
Yep.
And then bam, everything bled out, and I was riding it. Everything was great.
Good to go.
And then all the other kinks got worked out on that trip. And then I rode that thing. I did Sturgis, or actually San Francisco, then Born Free, then home. That was that run where I talk about losing axle nuts and shit like that.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got home, it was like a month and a half later, I was on my way to Sturgis, came home from that. And then a month after that, I did the Smoky Mountain run for what at the time was Hot Bike Tour.
Okay.
And then came home for that. And then I did a whole bunch of back and forth to around Texas and shit.
So you put some serious.
Yeah,
miles.
and then the last run, I went and had some maintenance done again, and then I rode it to Daytona, the only Daytona I've ever been to, which was 18. And then rode home from that, and then I started hearing a tick. It was like something was off.
Right.
And so I was like, I took it to Giddy Up, second to last Giddy Up ever, and then I came back and I was like, this motor's done. Like it's either the crank or there's some shit going on. It's like at this point, you know, I was like $25,000 of my own money into it on top of like labor, and that's all at discounts too. And I was like,
right.
I could. If I fix this, I'm going to be $30,000 in this bike, and maybe I'm going to get 15 to 20 for it if I sell it at the time. Now it would have sold easily
Oh, yeah,
at 20s, right?
Yeah. they're crazy
But at the
expensive.
time, like I didn't feel like I was going to get enough money for it selling it, so I just parted it out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
That's crazy, man.
yeah,
That was a beautiful bike.
yeah.
I
I'm
didn't know
also
you
glad.
partied that out.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to see it every fucking day now. The tins are in Hawaii, and the motor and drivetrain went somewhere else. My buddy Mark has the rim still. I was gonna buy them and put them on the Dyna,
Okay.
but I couldn't get Lindahl to answer their phone.
I was
so.
just going to say you have Lindahl on there, too, I see.
Yeah, I had a great relationship for quite a while. I don't know what it looks like today, but I'm hoping that we're still friends.
Yeah. They make
And that's
good
all I
stuff,
got to
man.
say about that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. for
No,
sure.
but I'm gonna go pee real quick. But I do want to hear like some details of that, like the actual riding on that trip. So.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Sean, it's you and me, buddy.
Oh, it's just me and you now. That's where we start losing all the watchers, right?
No, fuck them.
This is where the good stuff
This is where it
happens.
gets good,
Yeah,
yeah.
heck
If they've
yeah.
been watching, they know what's up. So I've been going on through this stuff. This is the 19, right? The one you're currently building. This is the one you're on the trip for. Let me hit that button. The one you were talking about earlier before we went live about to pick up the motor and everything.
Oh,
On
the
way back
19.
home.
Yeah.
It'll pop up any second.
Yeah, I was waiting for it there. Yeah, that's the one I'm building right now. So the chassis is all done on that bike. I spent a lot of time the last few weeks working on it, trying to get ready for Sons of Speed. And my buddy Bill Page up in Kansas, he's got the motor for it. I bought the motor from Jason Sims, a 1919, and it's a twin-cylinder 61-inch motor. And I handed off to Bill a couple months ago, and he completely. I wish I had. I don't know if there's a picture of this thing. I should have sent it to you. But this thing was like just a basket of rust.
Yeah.
And he took it and made the thing look like brand new. So when I leave here, I'm actually going to head up there and put that motor in the chassis and get it ready for a race next week. So.
Dude, that's badass.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. Yeah, we found out about this is the event down in Tennessee, in Hohenwald, Tennessee. May 29th for Sons of Speed. First time on the dirt track.
Everybody's on these bagger league guys jocks right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and go down a limb right now and say it's the antique bike racing is really where it's at.
I don't know. It's going to be hard to take over the bagger racing league. That's what everybody's.
That's gonna be a no for me. Nah, it's dope that it's happening. Or that fucking I need a little upper and a downer.
Yeah, I got you.
No, no. So your trip, man. So like I said, you're on this. You're running from basically Pennsylvania all the way to Virginia City, Reno. Like, what was your route? What was your kind of shit you did on the road, kind of stuff? You know?
Yeah. So I did a pretty good job because like that was the other thing. So being part of the going for the Triple Crown, there's really no rules. It's all kind of like just hearsay. Like, like what I said earlier, like, got to have your FXR. Don't break down. Like, if you break down, fix it. Don't trailer at any point. Don't get a ride.
Yeah.
Don't load the bike. But other than that, I mean, there's no real, like, stipulations, It's all kind of faith. So my big thing was, like, kind of, Instagram's where all this goes through. So what I did is I just posted stories every time pretty much we got a gas stop, Like, hey, this is where we're at. This is how many miles we did. This is what just happened. So we're getting ready to leave. It was pretty nerve-wracking because obviously this was going to be the farthest trip that any of us have done in one run. And we were planning it for a very short amount of time. We literally drove all the way from Pennsylvania to Virginia City to like party for one night, and woke up the next morning and drove home.
That's some biker shit.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
So, as much as we'd love to stay and hang out a couple.
How many
days,
miles was it? 2,000.
Round trip we did. It was like 50. I think it was like 5,400 miles or something like that, 5,300.
In less than a week.
Yeah, we went. Well, we went. It was 8 days total.
Okay.
So the way out, we didn't want to just go 80 like we were talking about earlier because 80 sucks. Mm-hmm. I've driven all over the country and know all that stuff, but so we wanted to kind of make it fun. So we actually dropped all the way down to 70, took 70, and then went down, saw our buddy Clint at Big Bore Cycles there, went and talked to him and got some lunch in his town, which is an awesome place to eat, went down there. First few days were really good. Then we started having some coil issues with Cowboy's bike. That Ultima was eating them up. And that was the thing with the Ultimas. They ran like a real, from factory, they ran a real harsh cam. You know, I think his cam was like a 625 or something, real crazy lift on it. But so that bike was just having a hard time with coil. So Kevin, he's like a mastermind. He goes, oh, let's just jump this wire and do this. So we actually just switched it over to single fire and jumped the wire and ran it, and it worked fine. And, you know, we kept going. And then we got onto Highway 50.
Where'd you catch that at? Did you go to like Glenwood Springs 70?
Yeah.
Like after Denver, going past Bale and all that shit?
Yep, we went right through there, and then we caught it right on the edge there, and then rode that all the way through Nevada and Utah is where we took that. And I'm telling you right now, like, you got to do it. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, 50 is like on the docket for this next trip.
Yeah,
so
definitely do it. I will definitely ride that road as much as physically possible the rest of my life. So
going across that northern part of Nevada is literally like, I would rather go to the dentist. And
it's bad.
Yeah.
So that was part of the way home. It was bad. I'll get into that. But so on the way out, you know, we had a couple little issues with the coil stuff. It wasn't too bad. And I forgot totally to mention the first jam we went to, we met this Chandler. And Chandler's a super nice dude, and he was actually going for the Triple Crown that year.
yeah,
And he rode all the way from Salt Lake City to the East Coast Jam by himself, like in a crazy short amount of time, and on a pretty much bone stock FXR. And super nice dude, really cool guy. We met him, and we're trying to make plans with him and another one of these Franco, who's riding his FXR. We're trying to make plans to like all meet up at some point because we're all going for it. We wanted to kind of make a trip out of it. So Chandler, on the way back from the East Coast Jam, he broke and ended up having to get trailered, and, you know, he was kind of out. So we were going to meet up with him, though, in Utah and go to the West because he's like, I'll still go to the Jam, you know. And he broke again. So we're on Highway 50, and I'm in touch with him. So I'm, like, getting motor oil because we didn't know what was wrong with his bike. He just broke down on the way out. So, like, we're in touch with him the whole time. So finally we meet up with him on Highway 50. Here he is standing out in the middle of the desert. On Highway 50, like, his bike broke down in the middle of nowhere on this highway. And, like, we pull up, and he's been standing there for I don't know how many hours. And we look at his bike, and there's just oil all over the ground. And, I mean, it was bad. Like, as soon as we rolled up, we're like, yeah, man, I don't. And he knew it. You know, he was like, yeah, it's done.
Is it a battery?
Yeah. Like, he knew enough to know that it was done. So,
There's some more ice over there?
you know, we felt pretty bad. But we had to leave him, you know, because like, we couldn't do anything. But he had a buddy actually driving all the way from Salt Lake to pick him up. So his buddy ends up picking him up, and then they go like party in one of the towns and then go back home. So we kept going. We made it out there, and I'll never forget like there's the tail stretch of it. Like when we knew we were all gonna make it to the Jam at least. It really, like, the weight lifted, and, like, the weather cooled down because it was hot, really, really bad.
What,
July. Yeah, so it's, like, in the peak of it. We're going through the middle of this, like, that was the hardest part for me at least, was the heat. Like, you know, you're sitting on your bike, you're rolling nothing but heat off the motor.
Yeah.
You don't really expel the heat well with a full fairing bike and lowers. It's all right there on you. So that it was getting kind of monotonous at the end, but you know I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
So is there any like towns on 50 like where you can like literally?
Yeah, so that's the thing about 50. So you have to like with an FXR, you have to make sure you have enough fuel for at least 100 miles, because when you go when you start getting out there, it is exactly 100 miles to every fuel stop. So if you don't plan just right, you will run out of fuel.
Yeah.
So we actually took little fuel bottles with us. We had spares on our bikes, and it was kind of cool. I would like to mention this. We met this girl at one gas station in Nevada, I think it was. Or no, it wasn't Nevada. It was Utah. We met her in Utah, and she was riding all over the country on her Sportster by herself, like nobody with her, and she was like out in the middle, on Highway 50. You know,
is this a rape? Are we raping?
No, none of that. None of that. No, it was kind of funny because like this chick, she was built like she was like.
I think I've seen this one. Hold on.
Yeah. She like beat the crap out of you. Yeah. It was crazy. So like I come out of the gas station and like Cowboy's talking to her, and I didn't know her story. He's like telling me about it, and we're like, oh, hey, you want to ride with? She's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, all right, don't blame you. 3 random dudes, you know?
Yeah. Nice try, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not stupid.
By the way, I'm going to get canceled for that one, by the way.
It's over.
It was a joke. It was a
It's a joke for like 4 people, too.
Yeah. All my good buddies will know what it's about.
Oh, no. All right. So we leave like way before she does. So like we take off. And then next thing you know, I don't know if we were riding slow or what, but she caught us. And we thought she was like going to go blowing right by us. But she ended up like just riding, like got right up in line and started riding with us. So we pull over to the next gas station. And obviously she has to pull in because everybody has to get fuel, otherwise you're going to run out.
Yeah.
So she pulls in. She's like, hey, I'm going to ride with you guys for a little while. We're like, yeah, cool, no problem. So we ended up riding with her like all the way deep into Nevada. And we like crossed paths with her again, like randomly in this crazy town. But she was going to like California or something. But I can't remember her name for the life of me. But I just wanted to.
Yeah, it was crazy. I met this chick when I was leaving House of Harley in Milwaukee. I went to go ride the ferry across to Muskegon.
Okay.
And I pulled up and there's this fucking Sport Glide right there, and I'm like, oh, who the fuck is this? And it ended up being this lady. Her name was Rhonda, and I said her name on here before, but she's just like a 50-plus-year-old woman who her husband passed away a couple years ago. She was a school teacher. All her kids are out of the house.
Okay.
She sold her house, bought an RV, and then parked it in a place, and then jumped on a bike and is just riding all over the country.
No shit.
And we sat there and we talked on this whole like 2.5-hour ride across the lake, and blew my mind. Like, I couldn't like take my ears off of her telling me all these stories. And I was like, you got to come to Dallas.
Right.
We got to do a podcast. And she's been in Texas plenty of times, but I don't know. She hasn't like really wanted to come do this. But she had like, I told her what we were doing, and she was like, hey, if you and your buddy, I was meeting my boy, Steve Chamberlain.
Oh yeah.
If y'all want to, if y'all need a place to stay in, like, I think it was Pennsylvania, actually.
Really?
She's like, if you need a place to crash, like, you guys can go stay in my RV. And
shit.
like, I was like, God damn, like, that's the kind of hospitality that you want from bikers.
Right.
So I've met some really like badass people on the road, and we were forced, to kind of hang out together in a sense on this boat across the ocean, or the Great Lakes there and shit.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's the same concept, man.
Yeah,
like, there's
'cause,
some
like,
women doing some badass riding.
That's
I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to get some GP.
Oh yeah, so you guys made a mistake earlier. Now
Don't
you gotta
announce
cover
it.
your
Everybody
tracks.
knows.
Yeah, no, that's what I just wanted to say.
I love women. not in a rapey kind of way.
Oh man, but yeah, like it was just cool, because like that takes a lot of guts. Like not only like a dude riding by himself, that's big, because like you break down or something, you don't have the know-how.
I feel like that's also, once again, like I think that every guy that really enjoys traveling should do a trip by themselves.
Yeah.
I think that you really find out a lot about yourself, and I'm still figuring that out myself. But I think it kind of gives you a lot of perspective on what being on a bike, because you're having to rely everything on you. There's no one else to lean on. And
Right.
for some of us, that's easy, right? Like for me, it's easy being a guy that usually plans trips.
Right.
But a guy that's usually just like, all right, where's the next stop? That guy's going to have a harder time.
Follower,
Yeah. So, and not to say follower in a bad way, but someone that just kind of enjoys being on a trip and have
challenge
to have the
yourself.
responsibility, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of solo trips? Like, are you?
I have done more as of last year and a half.
Okay, because I was gonna say the last couple of times I think I saw you doing solo stuff.
So I have the big trip we do every year in June, which
Yep.
is what's coming up.
Yep.
Sturgis last year, we had a big group going to Sturgis. But then after Sturgis was I did like another – I went to Salt Lake and then kind of looped back home. But last year in March, I wanted to do a podcast run in California, so I jumped on the bike and did a solo run all the way up to San Francisco and back.
Okay.
I enjoy it, man. Like, it's a good balance. I feel like I need one of those, and I need one with the homies every year. I need
Right.
both. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because like I guess like when you're by yourself, you're setting all your deadlines, all your schedule. You don't wait for people at the gas station and go, hey, where's this person at? You're not looking
Yeah.
in your mirror. I mean,
Well, when I do a solo trip, it's usually because I'm doing podcasts on it, right? And so I don't, like if me and Jaden are on the road together, then like he's on the podcast so much, it wouldn't hurt to sit down and have him in one with me.
right.
But when you have 7 dudes with you, Like, I can't just be like, hey, guys, we got to stop at Ness. I got to go set up and do a podcast for a couple hours. So you guys, I think there's a McDonald's down the street.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know what I mean? Go play in the balls. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like they're on vacation and now, but I'm at work,
Right.
even though I'm on vacation too, but I still have to work. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So it's a good balance.
I need the balance because, I don't know. Like, I would never pick doing solo trip over being able to do it with all my friends, like what we've been doing the last couple of years. But at the same time, like, I'm the constant. Like, if that falls apart, I'm still going to ride bikes cross country. That's why I feel like you shouldn't rely on other people to be able to enjoy what is riding a bike across country.
Right.
Do it for yourself, and then you have it there. You know that you can go ride a bike from here to wherever you're going to go by yourself and
Right.
and have fun, and then you can go enjoy doing it with your friends in a different mind because you know that you can. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Really,
No,
it's
I get what you're saying because
Yeah.
it's like it's the same. Like there's a lot of people that don't do things because they rely on their friends to do it with them. And if you do that, you're gonna find yourself throughout your life missing out on a lot of opportunity. Like if you just get on your bike and go, and don't rely on somebody else to go. And I'm not saying your friends blow you off. I'm just saying everybody has responsibilities, right? Like not every time everybody can align a schedule. And I mean, cross country road trips, especially, that's a big task. It's like, that's why I was excited to have those guys with me. I was going to do it, but
for us here in Texas, even where you live, like the same distance it takes for me to get to Big Bend, that's a 500-mile rip, right?
Yeah.
500 miles from where you live is a lot of badass shit.
Oh yeah, and that's
so
there's a benefit to where we live for sure.
I think that people can still do a solo ride. I think anybody can do this. It doesn't have to be 1,000 miles, but like, hey, take a weekend, leave Friday, come home Sunday night, and just be alone somewhere.
Go for a big loop. Go somewhere.
Whether you go camp by yourself somewhere or go hotel or go meet some homeboy on Instagram and, hang out and ride. You know what I mean? Weird shit.
That's the other thing too, man. Like Instagram, what I love about it is like there's so many guys I've met, that like you would never know who they were.
Yeah.
It's like the community is one thing, and you meet these guys at these events, but you also meet people that you don't have the chance to. And like you said, like I have people reach out to me all the time, like, hey, if you're in the area, I reached out yesterday. A couple guys are like, oh, if you need a place to crash.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
That's
it's cool. It's like you make connections that you never have the opportunity to. So
it makes it fun because everywhere, like from us traveling, right? When we go through an area, like if I would have known you when we were going through Erie, like we would hit, hey man, like
you better hit me up.
Yeah, it's like, hey dude, so what's happening? What are we doing tonight?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so like instead of us going to Chili's, who the fuck is that?
Uh-oh, true.
What up, man? Is that your drug dealer? You got a drug dealer come to the podcast? Fucking Jaden.
He goes, yeah, don't worry about it.
He looked like a drug dealer when he opened the door too.
He knew it right instantly.
What was I saying?
That's awesome. Talking about going through Erie, like if you.
Basically, my friends all make fun of me because I'm like, hey, we don't know anybody in this town, and it's 8 p.m. and I don't know what bars or where to go, but that fucking Chili's is open till 10.
Right.
And I know what I want there, and I know that they got Presidente margaritas. So let's go there.
Yep. The menu.
And then we'll ask the locals there where to go, right? But when you have somebody in a town like, hey man, we're coming to Erie, dude, like, so show what are we doing?
That's when you have the best experience.
Exactly.
Because you don't.
We get to go
to
your spots that you've already figured out.
Yeah, because you're dealing with somebody that's lived there their entire life or most of their life or whatever, so they can take you to places you'll never know about.
Exactly.
And that's the whole benefit of it,
You get to really experience what a town has to offer, not just the surface value, which is going to be your Applebee's and Chili's.
Right off the highway kind of thing.
Exactly.
And that's the best part of this whole thing is that experience right there, because that's the stuff that you don't get, especially if you don't, talk to people or whatever, do that. But I love it, man. I wouldn't trade it.
So how did this whole concept, kind of creeping on your Instagram, and I see you ripping around on a brand new Pan America. that seemed perfectly fine and dandy.
Yeah, it was a nice bike. So okay.
So let's talk about let's get into this FXR America.
Okay.
And just run me down the whole thing. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So, it actually, we started kicking around the idea at the East Coast Jam last year. So there was a couple of us walking around saying, like, oh, did you guys hear about the new Pan America? Because it wasn't really out yet.
Yeah, it just came out.
And we're like, yeah, and it's like, oh, finally Harley's trying to do something new. They're water cooled, horsepower, trying to compete against Indian. Because everybody's always talking smack about how Indians are this, Indians are that. And, no offense to the Indian guys, but it's not really an Indian, in my opinion. Indian died a long time ago. But
thank you.
That's just my opinion. Hate me, I don't care, whatever. So, but, they're just trying to use the name to sell bikes. So, I won't take away, their performance bike, whatever. They're doing whatever they're doing. And so... we were kicking around the idea and stuff, and obviously, like, it was just hearsay, blah, blah, that was it. So then, we do the Triple Crown, everything goes well. We're on our way back from Sturgis, and there's a group of us, we're good to go. We're at, like, a random hotel stop, and I'll never forget this. It was, like, the morning, we're getting later. It was the last morning to make it home. Mm-hmm. And that was, like, we'd already been at the FXR show and everything, so everything was all wrapped up. And we're on our way back, and I'm like, what do we do from here? Because it was like, we're all standing there, and we're all talking about, like, man, this was a heck of a year. We built bikes, we rode the bikes all over the country. Uh-huh. We freaking had the year of, if you look back to our Instagram, people are like, what do you do? You're like a rock star. I'm like, no, man, I'm just doing, like, just riding bikes, So it's like, how do I top this, So it's like always like, what's the next high, So we're like kicking around the idea. I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to get a Pan America and put it in an FXR. And my right hand man Kevin, he's the guy I always look to for advice. He's the guy I always look to for like yay or nay kind of thing. He's an engineer and stuff. So I'm like, we can do this. And he goes, yeah, we could probably do it. I'm like, no, we can do this. We're going to do it. And it was kind of like, yeah, we'll do it. But maybe not just right now. So, fast forward, we're going on and on. So I actually, when I got back from the ride home from Sturgis, I ended up turning right around, went on the Cannonball. So I had that for an entire month. And then we get back from the Cannonball, and Tom gets a hold of me. He's like, hey, let's go down to Sons of Speed. So we went down to Florida for Sons of Speed for Biketoberfest, did that whole deal. And right when we did that, Nick reached out and goes, hey, Virginia City's happening. We're doing this build-off with FXRs and choppers. And, he's like, do you want to be a part of it? He's like, I want to invite you to be a builder. And I'm like, oh, man. Like, okay. And I'm like, who's the other builders, And they announce them, and it's like, Ramjet and Jessup and, TPJ and, Mike and all them guys. And I'm like, these are all legit dudes, So it's like, this is gonna be tough. So,
is I couldn't remember. Is TBJ doing an FXR or a chopper?
He's doing FXR.
Dope. It's good to see him like push into like seeing his take of an FXR. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he's a master, dude. He's good at what he does for sure. All those guys are
debatable.
It's debatable, yeah. Well, talk a little smack once in a while. Don't get their heads too big, right? Yeah. So it was like that, and. So I actually, at the very beginning of this, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm not even like really thinking Pan America FXR right now. I'm thinking like, I'm going to do like a shovel head, like a badass shovel head FXR. And then like I really started thinking, like I actually had like stuff lined up, and I'm like getting ready to go buy a shovel head motor, a bike and everything, and like I'm going to do all this crazy stuff to it. And then I'm like thinking to myself, holy cow, like, you got invited to do this build off against like the best of the best in the FXR world, like, what are you going to do, man? Like, and I'm never one to like, oh, I'm just going to settle. Like you said, if you get invited to a build, you try to bring the best you can.
Show the fuck up.
So I'm like, well, let's go get a Pan America and let's do it. And I'm talking to Kevin, and at the time our buddy had just got one. And so Kevin, like, I'm still road tripping. Kevin's running over to his house and like measuring the engine. I'm like, is it going to work? Is it going to work? He's like, oh, I don't know, man. It's going to be tight. I'm like, we'll do whatever we got to do. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yeah, he's like, I think we could do it. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do it. Like, there's no think, we're just gonna go in for it. You know, go big or go home. So, I started calling around. There's no Pan Americas because like I don't want a special. I don't want the adaptive ride height and all that stuff. I just want the cheapest Pan America so I get the whole bike. Well, actually, first I started with motor and front end because that's what I was going to use mainly. So I started calling Harley, and Harley's like, without a VIN number, you're not buying a motor, dude. Like, sorry. And then I priced it, and the motor, like, without any of the extra, like the throttle bodies or the wiring harness, anything to make it run was like $10,000, like with the extra add-on stuff. And I'm like, man, you know, this is really expensive. So then I started looking for wrecked ones, but the wrecked ones all had wrecked components that I wanted to use. So that didn't work. So finally I just was like, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm just going to go buy one. Mm-hmm. So I started looking around. They're not available. No base models left in the country. This is at the end of 2021. So fuck. I'm like, oh, man, what do I do? So I call Chandler, our buddy, the FXR dude I was telling you about earlier. Mm-hmm. I call him. I'm like, hey, or I text him, whatever. I was like, hey, because he works at Harley in Salt Lake. And I was like, can you do me a favor and search for Pan Americas anywhere in the country? Because, like, at this point, I'm a dedicated dude. Like, I'll go anywhere I have to go to get it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, hey, man, find me a Pan America. So he goes, there's one base model left in the country, like on your side of the country. I think it was the overall country. I'm pretty sure it was the overall, but it might have just been my side. I don't know. But anyways, there's like one base model. And he's like, it's in New York City. And I'm like, okay, that's not bad. You know, yeah. I'm 8 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, something like that. So I'm like, okay. So I called the dealership. I was still, at this point, I was still driving home from Florida. And, you know, I actually, then I just found out about our other business venture. This is all happening at the exact same time. So, like, I'm quitting my main job. I'm doing this. I'm buying this. But I was like, it was crazy turmoil. So, you know, I call the dealership. I'm like, hey, I need to buy this bike. I know you have it. Yep, we have it sitting right here. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Mark my name down. Okay, can you put any money down? I'm like, yep, here you go. Here's my credit card. Put money down, whatever. I'll be in with cash, get the rest. So they hold the bike for me for, it was like a week or so. So then my buddy Tom has like an enclosed van because I have like a big truck and trailer, enclosed trailer, and I'm like, I am not driving that into the heart of New York City. Yeah. Like, that's not happening. So
where's the dealership in Manhattan? Is that
it's the other side of the Bronx. Like, I had to drive through the city. So
that's just north, huh?
I had to drive through the city. No, it was on the island.
So Bronx is north of like Harlem and all that.
Yeah.
So you're either in like Lower Manhattan, which is where
it might have been. I'm not. That was actually the first time I ever been in the city. Like, I've been outside of the city.
Yeah.
Like I've never been in.
I fucking love it there, but
it was cool. Like we were driving around and stuff. But so my good buddy Liam O'Neill and then Kevin and we all load up in the van and we just like blow out there and we go out to get the bike. And yeah, this is it. And we walk into the dealership, and it was so funny. Like, oh, our master technician, he's going to show you, like, everything about this bike. I'm like, okay, it's been out for a few months. Like, your master technician, I'm sure he's a master. I'm like, whatever, you know. So this dude's, like, showing me all this stuff on the bike, and I'm literally looking at him. We're all standing there. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I really, like, can we just get the bike, load up? I want to go back home. Because, like, I'm not telling these guys what I'm doing, you know, because like, they're going to think I'm absolutely nuts, which most people do think I'm nuts, so. I'm looking at him, whatever. And then he goes, I'll never forget this, because this is Harley Davidson. If anybody's ever listening that works for the company, this is you. He looks at me and goes, oh, by the way, you have to keep a tender on the battery. It just dies. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm giving you all this money for a brand new bike and the battery just dies and that's okay? Like, he goes, yeah, that's just how it is. Like, we just have to keep a tender on the battery when you're not riding it. I'm like, what if it's like a couple of days? He goes, oh, yeah, it'll be dead. Like, it won't start. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, this is great news. So I was like, whatever. I'm in it now. Like, just give me the bike. So
after you bought it.
After I bought it,
papers are signed.
Yeah, the papers are signed. It's all done. Money's been exchanged. So we load the thing up. I go back home with it. And I get out of the truck, and quite honestly, like, before we even talked about doing this, like with the FXR thing, like, I really wanted one because like they're a cool bike, you know. And the worst mistake I made was riding it. And then our intentions were to break it in before we took it apart. So that way the break-in was done. It's 500 miles.
Yeah.
well, I shouldn't have rode it because I rode it and I'm like, man, this bike is sweet.
Yeah.
It rips, you know. And I didn't even really get on it that hard because I didn't break it all the way in. I only got like 300 miles on it because our weather went real cold real fast.
Real
it was
quick,
like 30 degrees the last day I rode it before we tore it down. So I ended up taking it to Harley in Erie, dropped it off. Or I didn't drop. I rolled in there. I'm like, hey, my battery just dies. I'm like, the guy that the other dealership we bought it from said it just happens, or Master Tech. They're like, no, Harley just released an update for it. Like, we can update your program or whatever. So I had him flash the ECU and do that before I tore it down. And so, you know, get the bike back. Weather got really crappy up in Pennsylvania. So we're like, okay, here we go. So Brian and I and Kevin just started ripping the bike apart. We had the whole thing down to the motor within, you know, a few hours. It was pretty easy because there's no frame.
It's a stress member frame.
Yeah, the motor's a chassis. So it was just the neck and the rear tail section of the motor.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, because a sport bike technically would still have a frame that would kind of go over the top of the motor.
Yeah, like Ducatis and stuff all kind of, like they like cradle it.
So this thing has like a front frame and a rear frame?
Yeah, it's completely separate.
Wow.
It's actually crazy. So the front neck, which is funny because like when I'm done doing this, I'm going to sell all the extra parts I don't need. I've actually I've given some parts away, like just to one dude, Danger Dan. He's been doing that crazy Pan American trip, so like he's had a couple issues. So he called me. He's like, hey, I need some parts. So I sent him like a fuel pump and a battery holder because like Harley won't help him. He's in like Panama or whatever. His Pan America's broke down, and he's like, dude. He's like, I can't get parts for this thing. Like they won't, you know. And
that's what I don't get because like Harley and him. Like, Harley fucks with him, or they want to mess with him.
Right.
But then they seem like they don't, like, I don't get it.
I don't either. Because,
I don't get it.
Like, he's doing a lot for their brand and everything. Like, I mean, the dude's got a heck of a following, and, 100%. You know, he's doing this crazy stuff. So, it's like, you know, and I met him in Bike Week. We were actually staying in the same hotel together. And then he's like, it was so funny, dude. Like, a little side story. We're standing at the back of my pickup truck. We have, like, we're all down there on all the antique bikes. We have 36 knuckleheads, first year knuckleheads. We have flatheads. We have like the cream of the crop motorcycle sitting next to the truck where we've been riding around.
And he walks up with a torqued up.
Yeah,
he walks up with a hard on, like, hey guys.
him, Kickstart Mike, and Nick, the knife maker. Yeah, he walks up. They're like all staying there. Super cool guys.
Knife maker Nick is his name.
Nick Huff.
Yeah, Nick Huff. Super cool guys. He walks up and we're sitting there and we're like drinking a beer and Danger Dan and I are talking. We're all standing there talking, Kevin, I, and Brian. And he goes, we bring up the Pan America FXR and he goes, that's you? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, dude, I just talked shit on you on my last podcast, or like a podcast ago. And I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, I don't care. You know, there's not everybody understands. And everybody likes the same stuff you do. It's like, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't hurt my feelings. So we were laughing about it. And he's like, well, why did you do it? So I kind of explained to him. And he goes, oh, okay, I get it, you know. Because, like, if you just look at it from the outside, you see this dude just bought a perfectly good Pan America, tears it apart and puts it in a frame that, in a sense, is everybody's like, oh, it's outdated. Well, yeah, your bagger frame's still pretty much the same concept as that.
Yeah,
you know, if you
for
think
sure.
about it. But anyways, we actually ended up becoming pretty good buddies, and then now he needed parts from me. And it was so funny. The one day he called me. He goes, hey, I need some parts. And I'm like, oh, talking crap on me. I need some parts, you know. I'm like the only dude in the country who has spare Pan America parts, you know. So
yeah, Harley's kind of call you for some shit here pretty soon. Probably.
I'm waiting for it. I've literally got like at least 7 or 8 people who were like, hey, are you going to sell this? I'm like, no, not really, not till it's, you know, done kind of thing, you know. But yeah, so it's just like the front the front of the neck where the front end mounts to, there's a VIN number on it. That's the frame. It's crazy. It's literally this big. And then you have the rear tail section that bolts on the rear cylinder. And then there's a bracket that goes down the back of the motor and then your swing arm bolts to that. You got bearings on your swing arm, and that's it. That's the bike. All your lines, all your wirings up top. You got your throttle bodies, your ECU, your computer, everything. And then you got your screen and your valence and stuff. So, I mean, it's very, like, I would say Jap bike-ish, like Yamaha style.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they went for. But, hey, that's the market they're going for, you know? So,
yeah.
What I liked about it was the 150.
You know, one thing I did notice when you were building, like some of the pictures, like originally you had like a full RT fairing set up.
Yeah.
And so what made you decide to go with the front end from the actual
So
Pan America.
That actually was more recent, and that's what really stalled the whole build because it added a ton of work to our plate. But I felt way better. Like so,
it looks more unique and
yes.
I like this version of it more than just seeing another RT fairing.
And I'm glad you say that because like that was really a hard decision for me to make. It was like we were going out west and we were going to an auction or something, and I've been hearing about a bunch of people like, oh, FXRs are getting old. You know, they're everybody's running RT fairings. And in the back of my mind, everybody's doing, because you got all these aftermarket companies now that are doing RT fairings and stuff, and they're great. I love them. I have them. You know, it's like I bought fairings. I love all of them, and they're practical and everything. But like for what I'm doing with it, and for the build that I'm taking it to, I was sitting there looking at the bike one night in my garage, and I'm like, until you walk around the front of that bike and look at the engine, you're not going to know it's anything different. Yeah. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, that's it. That's the light bulb that went off. So I sent a text out to Kevin and Brian. Brian's our painter and stuff, and I'm like, hey guys, like, how do you feel about this? I'm like, obviously it's my bike and stuff, but I always like getting other people's opinions.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm like, hey, I'm really thinking about ditching the RT fairing. And it's funny because like I just bought brand new everything, and they're like, what? Like really? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why would you do that? And I'm like, because everybody has an RT full fairing bike. I'm like, I'm just trying to do something different, And I had no idea what that Pan America fairing was going to look like on there. In my head, I'm like, I hope it looks good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, essentially, it's like a T-Sport fairing reimagined.
Right. It's a modern
20 years later.
Exactly. It's a modern day fairing. And then I've always really loved the front of the Pan. Like I love the square headlight, LED. There's people that don't like it. I love it. It's like, not to sound nerdy, but like kind of like Tron, like that.
Those guys probably think tapered bearings are better than steel bearings.
Yeah,
so.
All those guys, like
we
old
get
school
it, dude.
guys. Yeah, so it's like I wanted to like do something different. So then I pull the whole RT fairing, I'll get it off, and then this is as soon as I got home for that trip. So I pull it all off, and I take the Pan America fairing. And by the way, the screen and all the touchscreen, everything's already on it. So it's like, oh man,
so it's an easy integration.
Because I was going to take that screen off and like mold it into the fairing and all that stuff. So I hold it up there, and I get it to sit up there with like some clamps and just rigging it. And I'm like, I'm stepping back, and I'm like, oh man, it doesn't look bad, The only thing that was kind of like weird about it was directly from the side, the gap for the tank and the fairing. There's a, like, I don't even know, probably like I would say 8 to 10 inches. And I didn't hate it, but at the same time I was like, man, I don't know. But so I sent.
How does the angle of like the fairing and that lower part of the fairing, how does that flow with, say for instance, the down tubes of the frame? Does it have a good like lines there?
Well, so that was the thing. So then I was like, and I really wanted to run lowers. So I was like, we can't run the stock Pan America lowers. They're very short, and they're plastic and all that. I don't want that. So I was like, we're going to have to make our own lowers. So then Kevin came over and we started drawing and figuring out where we're going to, put the stuff at. And we just started using like cardboard and paper, like old school, that's how we do it.
Everybody does.
So, we hold it up and we're like, and then we clamp a stock, the Pan America lower on, and we're like, oh, this is going to, the lines are going to work, but we need to extend it by a lot. And then I was changing the radiator and everything because we're not running the Pan America radiator. I got an aluminum radiator from whatchamacallit? What's that liquid cooled the X7, the 750s or whatever?
Yeah, it's not XR 750s. It's like
that. I can't
remember. I know what you're talking about. They had the 500 and the 750.
Yeah, we got one of those, which it's all aluminum and stuff aftermarket, but it's actually a lot nicer than the Pan America one because the Pan America one's like clunky and it's got like a fan off. It's ugly as hell. But so got a different fan, got a different radiator. So we put we modeled the lowers up. Kevin got those all. We got them CNC cut, laser cut, and then we took them and fabbed them up, and bent them up, and we put those on. I'm like, oh man, this is it. Like this looks badass.
Yeah.
Like, it's square. It fits the rest of the bike. It's chunky. It gives it that look. Now it's kind of. Now when you look at it, you're not going to know it's an FXR. And the only way you're going to know it's an FXR is because you're going to see that triangle.
Yeah, you're probably going to, depending on how you look at it, you're like, oh, look at this FX, wait. Or, hey, look at this, wait.
Yeah.
Depends on what angle you check it out.
Because you're going to see it from the front, and even the front isn't complete. Like, so it's going to have the Pan America front, but then the lowers are completely custom. And then we laser cut in pod light spots.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, so we have our integrated turn signals and our pod lights because in PA we have deer like crazy. I like light the woods up.
Did your whistles work?
Dude, I've never had them. I've seen them ever since I was a kid. I know people have had them. I can't give you an honest review because I don't know. They still sell them.
Yeah, I guess. I
don't know.
They
how
still
they
sell
work.
big dick pills too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I think they might work. I don't know. I've never ran them, but our best defense, on bikes, is especially where I live. All my buddies call it the deer gauntlet because I live in Amish country.
Oh, shit.
I'm out in the boons, so. You have to ride through 5,000 acres of state game lands, just woods. They call them jumbo woods, and there is deer just everywhere. So, I get onto my road at night.
I heard Lyme disease is pretty fucking heavy up there.
Oh yeah, ticks and stuff. Yeah.
So with this build, the other thing, noticing on some of your pictures you had posted, the orientation of this motor, right? Mm-hmm. It's so much more taller than your typical V twin air cooled ones.
Yeah.
And I remember someone, I can't remember which podcast it was, but somebody brought it up on this podcast. It might have been Henzo or it might have been Josh when we did that. They brought it up and I was like, what? Wait, seriously? And that's how I found out about this whole thing you were doing.
Okay.
And as soon as that happened, everything that I'm seeing you deal with, I'm like, okay, well, how's he going to do that? So I know it's a taller motor. It's can you rotate it? Can you dip it down more? You know what I mean? I was trying to think of how to fit it in a frame. Right.
So up until this point, I will say that was the biggest challenge we had to overcome.
Yeah.
Was the motor. We tried everything in our power to get that motor to go into a stock style frame. It's just not possible. I don't care who you are. It is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the biggest it's not even so much the height, it's the way that the cylinders are. So you don't have a 45 degree.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a 60 degree twin now.
Yeah.
So now your jug is facing way farther back here and way farther forward here. And what kills you is you have that down loop on the triangle portion of the frame. So you can only go so high with it, and it just wants to hit. Even right now, with the motor's in the frame right now. It's hanging in the frame. It's done under its own power, our own blade, whatever. It is right there. But I mean, and it's solid mount. There's no motor. There's no rubber. It can't move. So I don't have to worry about it hitting anything. But it's very tight. So, and you can kind of see that back. So
you wouldn't be able to go any far forward to the front of the bike.
No, it's right there. So I took the front motor mounts and I machined some loops out. So the other thing while building this bike is the entire time we're building it, we're not building it to put together once and then run it. I'm building it with the mind of having to pull the motor out, work on the motor. So everything we're doing, we're making sure it's easy to work on. So what we found out is we're gonna to drop the motor out. Those are our two top motor mounts, which are the main mounts.
Yeah.
You pull the bolts out of there. The motor, you have the bike sitting on you actually suspend the motor, put blocks near the motor. Pull those two bolts out, pull the front bolt out of the frame on each side.
Yeah.
You take the chassis, the frame rail, unbolt our bottom keys. We actually made laser cut keys that unbolt from the bottom.
Yeah, I
you
saw
actually
that.
just slide the frame right off the back. So it just goes poop. Flies right off.
Yeah, so it's very maintenanceable.
Yes, because we made it with the intent of, it's a brand new concept. Harley still doesn't even have it dialed in yet. I hear about guys having issues here and there. So it's
So obviously, so now you got it fitted into the frame. So the next issue is maybe aesthetically with the gaps. How do you feel about those?
So this is what I did. So we cut I mounted the fairing and had it up there, and I was I actually made weld tabs go on the neck and have it all up there and ready to go. And I was looking at it. I'm I don't know. I could run it without. I think it would be okay. With the paint and everything, you can blend it all anyway. It's not going to be different colors and stuff. So then I pick up the phone. I call Dave Perowitz. I was hey, man. I was what's your opinion on this? I was because, I always look to him for some advice and stuff. And he goes, well, to be honest with you, I don't like it. He goes, the gap's too big. And I'm okay. That's the question I kind of had. So then I asked some other buddies. I was what do you think, They're yeah, I like it. And then there's a couple guys so we came up with the idea, Dave was oh, why don't you just mold in some like extend the fairing from the Pan America, like just fiberglass in there, mold it, whatever you want to do, ABS. So I call Kevin. I'm like, we're talking about, we're going over it. So he comes over and we're thinking about it, and we're like, you know what? Let's do this. Like, let's draw a template. We'll draw the shape of what we want to do. We drew it out and we held it up there. And I'm like, all of a sudden this idea just pops in my head. I was like, the old wing windows on like the old trucks.
Yeah, yeah.
So we laser cut them out of lexan. We took the actual shape and ran back with the front valance to fill the gap. They're going to be painted the same color as the bike, but we're going to put them on actuators so you can actually pivot them in and out. So you can actually take the air and get it away from you.
In the fairing to go out of it.
And then if you want, you can turn them out and actually pull air into you. Like if you're riding on a really hot day, you want to bring air in.
That's cool.
So it's kind of like a wing window. So, and then that solves both your issues. Now you fill the gap, and now you can adjust airflow. Function.
Yeah.
So
now the next thing you started to deal with, and I saw you deal with this more recently, was a swing arm.
Yeah.
And so that was obviously going to be one of the biggest questions I had because this motor is taller but narrower. Right. And so now you have this gap between where traditionally on an FXR the swing arm is going to go through the frame there and pivot with the pivot blocks and rubber mounted.
Yep.
But you're also a monoshock with this thing.
Right. Yeah, we wanted to keep the monoshock.
Because, I mean, technically you could have maybe easier, wouldn't have been aesthetically as pleasing, just kept the rear frame stock and just made some mounts to hold to the frame and been good with it.
Right.
But running a monoshock changes the fucking game here.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, I didn't want to just... if we're going this far into it, you don't want to cut a corner at that point because, you're going to look at it and be like, man, like it was cool until that,
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that. I want you to look at the bike and be like, wow, these guys really put in some time and effort into it, So the biggest thing, like you can see where the sprocket is. It's up high and it's forward on tight to the rear of that jug. So the bike, it was, we went through a couple different phases on that. Getting the motor in the frame and aligning it, that was really tough because we had like lasers align. We had to dial everything within. I think the motor is in line with the rear of that bike within less than 1/8 of an inch. Like we laser shot that thing in, ran it all the way across my shop, and like measured it, and then we welded it in, marked it, and then laser shot it again. So that's dialed in, motors in. So now we tackle the swing arm. At first, we want to run the swing arm in the stock position with a monoshock. We're thinking about ways of doing it because we're like, man, it's going to look kind of goofy, whatever. But then your pivot geometry is all messed up. Your chain is all the way forward, and your pivot point's back here. Yeah. So you're going to be going like this. Your chain's going to slap. It's going to hit.
Yeah, you're going to have all these fucking Frankenstein things going to make it work.
Yeah, so it's going to be all messed up. So then we're talking about it, like, man, how are we going to do this? So what we ended up deciding was we're going to run the mounts where the stock Pan America mounts were. I took and machined up new the blocks that hold the bearings to the swing arm for the Pan America.
Yeah.
And we have to now make a swing arm go inside the frame rails and then back outside because you got to go narrow, and then you got to get to the blocks, and then you got to get fat again and get the tire and your chain set up.
So how does that work with like the frame itself and any kind of like? I mean, obviously you haven't ridden the thing yet, but how do you feel with like the rigidity? Is that a word? Right?
Yeah, rigidity.
Of the motor into the frame, and then the swing arm, but not being a part of the actual frame on the pivot of the swing arm.
Well, so it's not part of the frame, but it is
with the monoshock.
Yeah, so your mounts are coming off the back of the jug. It mounts the motor in two places.
Okay.
Your swing arm pivot goes through those two mounts. Those tie into the top of the frame. You have your front motor mounts, and you have the top motor mounts, your front motor mounts. So now you're taking look at it this way. Look at the frame as a cradle.
Yeah.
We adapted the frame to the motor.
Yeah.
We're running the swing arm off the motor, which is mounted to the frame. So now our pivot geometry will be the stock pivot geometry that they came up with for the Pan America. We don't have to worry about the chain bind or anything like that. And the biggest thing we had to do was make sure we could clearance enough to fit inside the FXR frame, because the first swing arm, which is that picture you guys showed earlier, we did a heavy tube one, and it fit, but you couldn't get it in. Like it fit measurement wise. We went to go put it in, like I had it all together, and you can't get it in. Like you can't tip it down, and it won't fit in.
So does it like clamp? Like, is there like a tunnel on the motor where you clamp, like run an axle through the hole?
Yeah, so it's like there's this giant like sleeve bushing, And like I said, I machined these two hollow cases out. These bearings press into the cases, and you push this giant pivot sleeve through, and that's what holds the swing arm to it, and that's your pivot point. And then actually to pull it out, it's nice. You pull it out, and then you can pull the whole swing arm out.
Nice.
So the first swing arm didn't work, so then we went back to the drawing board, redesigned a new swing arm, had to build a whole new one from scratch.
I got a feeling you're going to be working at Harley at some point.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But, yeah, I think this is the third or fourth swing arm we built now. And like I said, I got 20-some thousand miles on mine. Cowboy had, way more than that on his because he rode multiple motors to that. But we've had pretty good luck with them. We just, this one's been a challenge because it's not at a normal.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like I said, my questions are just more of like curiosity. Like, I'm like, okay, well, this, because the balance of functionality and aesthetics is the Libra scale of custom motorcycles, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't, a fully functional bike that like crosses all the T's in performance, if you don't have the balance of something that looks cool, then you lose half the crowd.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's the hard thing about it, because it's like in the back of my mind, we're doing this crazy bike that nobody's done before, which is what we wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring some to the game because, like I said, you're going against guys that are, top of their game, and they have crazy funding and all this other stuff. So it's like I don't know what they're gonna do. I still to this day I don't know what they're doing. All I know is what I'm gonna do. But with that being said, is like you could still build a really cool bike. Like even when I'm doing, like you could build the bike I'm building, and in my opinion, you could still easily go in and get outclassed in that show.
Yeah, yeah.
Because somebody's going to bring a bike to that thing that, because most people don't look at bikes and go, look at the engineering, look at the time that went into that.
I feel like FXR people do.
Maybe.
So I feel like
yeah.
So FXR people are so enthralled with the bike. I mean, they want to look at all those. They know what they want to do, and they want to see if you did it.
Right.
Right. They want to see if like, oh, this bike's badass. Let me see if they did all those things that I learned about, and I want to see if they did it. Right. The only thing I would say is like what you're doing, and probably what who Corey from Main Drive Cycle is.
I've heard the name. I don't.
So Main Drive, he's a local here.
Okay.
So he has been building, and he had just got it. It's in raw metal right now, but he got it in form to ride to the camp out. He did a full M8, right? So been done before.
Yeah.
Not the way he did it. He took everything from an M8 bagger, swing arm, wheels, front and rear wheels, everything.
Brand new bike.
And fit it in an FXR, and everything looks factory.
That's sweet.
Like,
so he did what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
With
He did it with an M8, so it looks like it came that way.
That's
you
sweet.
Can't tell. Like if you're a guy who walks over, oh shit, that's an M8. Everything, like the swing arm fits in, the stock rear fender fits in there. Like he made it all work.
A brand new FXR.
Exactly. And so
see, that's badass because like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is building a bike that can turn ahead, can meet functionality, and at the same time, achieve factory looks.
Exactly.
That's the
trifecta.
That's
the trinity of fucking
how do you
all this shit.
how do you do that? Like that's the hard thing to do.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you and Corey would be good buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
y'all would
bad.
hit it off.
I think, I mean, not to hijack it, but I feel like the roundup, and there's still time if they want to fucking like add. Corey should be a part of that because his bike's almost done.
Yeah,
and that might give him the pump to be there because his bike should be at an event like that.
I think you guys
We've had
posted
him on
some
before.
pictures or something. I saw that bike recently, and it was like related to the camp out.
Hang 'em High posted about a handful of people that
Yeah.
saw it
Okay,
at the
yeah,
camp
I
out.
just saw it because I was like, man,
it's in raw form right now, so he's still building it, but it is fucking like
it's cool.
So this is on to your point about like when you built the how do you say the
Nautilus.
the Nautilus? I can't. I feel like I'm
it's all right.
Nautilus.
20,000 league.
It was a Kuryakin M8 cover kit. So when I did my FXR, right, that was like that was my idea of what I wanted. And of course, when I built it at the time, like the coolest shit you could do was panel paint your shit, right? That was it. Like, and for me as a painter, that was like, oh shit, I can do that.
Right.
I've had a hard time finding an FXR that I wanted since then. Not that I don't love the bike or haven't, or I don't love them at all. Like, they're fucking amazing bikes, but I don't know how to top that for me. Not that in the world of FXRs is small fries, but for me, that was like my holy grail of what I wanted out of an FXR.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, honestly, when Corey started building this M8, where I was like, as somebody that's been riding M8s for the last 4 years, I'm like, I love that motor and I love that bike. And
it ignited like a,
I want that now.
Yeah.
I want one of those, but I don't know how to convince him to
build another one.
Because he was like, he did this. So, I mean, I don't know if he wants to say it, but fuck it. He told me, and I'm going to tell the world. So far, he's got an M8 complete on the like ground bike with a fucking fueling cam chest, full RT front and rear. He's got T-Sport bag or clamshells on the back, I believe. And he's like 10 grand in this whole bike with the motor, everything. And like, that's his stick, is like, I'm not spending any money on this. I'm going to buy everything as cheap as I can.
Yep.
He bought a full M8 basically bike on like eBay for $3,500. He had a frame. He did this. He's 10 grand in the bike.
I
But
got it on the screen.
But if he was going to,
That's a beautiful.
yeah, so he hasn't painted it yet. But if he was going to do that for somebody, it would be like a $50,000 bike.
How couldn't it be?
Exactly.
You're literally taking.
I
the
don't
Mecca.
disagree.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking the.
See, it has the front, the front
modern
end with
wheels.
the bagger wheels. It's got the rear 18-inch wheel.
Oh, that's killer, man,
dude.
Yeah,
Like
he killed it. He knocked it out of the park. That's freaking awesome. These are cool shots. I never seen these.
Dude, I don't know. That's
That
what
was
I-
right
built-
after,
he
that
bu-
video was right after the camp out, after he fixed the little compression. He did a shakedown run of the camp out, and
the compression stuck open and it broke.
when he got it fixed, and that little walk around video was the finished product.
Oh, okay.
So he hasn't painted it yet.
It's cool though.
Even the frame is still in a lot of. He hasn't like finished the frame yet. Like, it's still in raw metal form in a lot
Really?
of areas.
So he's got to tear it back apart.
So he has to tear it
paint
back apart and completely coat the whole thing and finish it out. But
You know
Man.
that guy.
dude,
Mike,
yeah,
that's killer. That's
we need to
awesome
talk about Mike's fucking swag game, dude. What the fuck is he wearing right there?
He don't care, man. He just doesn't care.
I need him to care a little.
He don't care.
But I mean, like, what you're doing and what that's done, like, that to me makes FXRs exciting.
Well, that's the thing. Like, how do you, in a world that everything has been done, everybody's put every motor you could possibly imagine in FXR.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what do? You know, it's like you could build a really nice, really high-end FXR with an Evo in it, with the best of every part, every bolt-on freaking accessory you can imagine, but you're just going to do what everybody else does.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm
No,
saying it in
yeah,
a way
100%.
of, you know, because, like, honestly, you go out to California, like, from where we're at, you go out there and you look at these guys' bikes, and it's like, holy cow. Like,
Yeah.
they're freaking awesome. And I'm not... There's really nice bikes in the East Coast. You just don't see them like you do in California.
Well, it's also like when Josh did Loch Ness, like, you know, love it or hate it,
It's out, dude. That bike has been everywhere for the last freaking 2 years,
dude.
yeah.
That bike is that bike. Let me tell you what this bike is. It's the mullet.
That's exactly what it is.
It's the mullet.
Yeah,
It's a joke until it ain't.
yeah. Dude,
Until
that-
you see it, and you're like, oh shit, like, I think I want to fuck that dude over there.
dude, I'll never forget.
It's a mullet on a guy with a big wiener, and everybody knows it. It's just the ultimate.
He walks around with that persona.
Yeah. Whip.
I'll never forget when we saw that bike. The first time was at the West Coast Jam, and I'm walking down. It was the night we got there, and we got there, it was like pitch black,
Yeah.
and like.
And you're
like,
drunk
yeah,
at this
yeah,
point,
we're drinking
yeah.
heavily. I didn't even get to get off the bike. You know, we're already drinking, and yeah, I'll never, like, I walked down like, whoa, what is that? I was like, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what it was, you know. And I really give that dude hats off because, like, I mean, he did something nobody's ever done. I mean,
Yeah. And
I mean, the bike is it's
when I
ton of
shot
time
some
in
photos of it when he came through here on the way back from Daytona, and I really got to look at it, and you know, shooting photos of it, like, you get to find angles of a bike. They're like, wow, like there's something badass here.
Right.
You know, there's something unique about this perspective of this bike and whatnot. And you know, there was this, you know, in the time that I've been involved or noticing FXRs, if you will, there's been this thing where when I came on, most people were doing panel paint club style looking FXRs. That's what was popular in 17, right? And then in 18 went through this resurgence of everything had to be OG factory looking paint. Maybe it was like a different color scheme than factory, but it was like factory logos, factory pinstripes.
Pinstriping, everything met the lines.
Then the police bikes went fucking retarded.
Oh, dude, they're still, they're actually still, that's the mecca now.
Exactly. So you had the police back bike thing that was like heavy. And then it just like, okay, at that point, everybody was like, man, what's next? And then, of course, you start seeing some of these, I don't know their names to reference them now, but a lot of the guys had done FXR choppers over the times.
Right.
And then, of course, the one that Al Emerson's been building for a couple of years now that's like probably one of my holy grail bikes if I could ever.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one.
Dude, it's fucking amazing.
Do you have
pull it up. It's, what's his Instagram? It's Al Emerson, but it's, I don't know. I can't recall the name. I got to piss again. I'll be right back. Maybe I can find it real quick. But he's building it for somebody. It's a twin cam FXR. It's a chop D-rate kind of situation. It's badass.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
I'm looking for the bike he's talking about. I'm on the guy's page. I had a question for you a minute ago, Sean, but I forgot what it was now.
It's all right, man.
Oh, a couple dudes. Back to the as far as the chat real quick. Had this one guy, this Brian Watine. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but any tips on attempting the Triple Crown?
Oh man, any attempts?
I know you've already touched on it, but he's been pretty active on this as far as chiming in. Looks like he's
okay. Yeah, no worries. So I would say if you're gonna go for the Triple Crown, if you're gonna do it solo, the biggest thing you want to carry with you is like spare parts that have as much test hitting you can get on your bike as possible. Like do as much physical riding as you can around locally. Get as much miles on it where you can actually take it out. Make sure the bike's going to perform the way you want it to perform, and if you do have any kind of noises or any things that come up that you're not sure about, figure it out and fix them, because that's the stuff that's going to leave you stranded on the side of the road. But I would carry coil stuff. I'd carry regulator. I'm trying to think what else. Always, before every trip, we always checked our bearings. I change the oil every time. But I mean, just basic maintenance stuff. And then don't hammer on the bike. These are older bikes. They're not really meant to go, 100 miles an hour. Set yourself a pace and just go for it, If you got a group, it's always nicer. You can carry more parts and stuff with you, but that would be my biggest thing, is just get yourself a pace and have some spare parts with you.
Like I got to help you out.
Yeah. But I will say the community is really cool because they will help you out and bring in parts. Chandler actually brought us parts for Cowboy.
Who's the Chandler dude that was is he out of Salt Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if he was the guy that reached out to our boy Saxon that used to work here. That was trying to get him a job at that dealership, I believe.
Yeah, he's a super nice dude. So Cowboy, that was one of the things I didn't tell you guys. We're coming back from the Jam, West Coast, and we're going through Devil's Gate, Nevada. It was like 115 degrees, hottest day riding. Cowboy's coil goes out right at the edge of the salt flats, right on the border there, Wendover. And we break down that town, and it's a Sunday, nobody's even open. So Chandler actually got a coil and we stayed at the casino that night, ran a coil all the way from Salt Lake City and dropped it off to us that night.
Yeah.
So that we could put on Cowboy's bike and we could ride it home the next day. So it was crazy. It wouldn't take a dime from us, wouldn't do anything.
So you want to post that? Did you put it up there?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's I know it was a quite, I don't know the situation, but this is the only picture I could find on this thing.
I've never seen this thing.
So so much shit is handmade, but he still has a twin cam. He still has like a Brock swing arm on it, I believe. It's still a swing arm setup, but that's my dream bike. But my dream bike aesthetics, and I hate to say this because obviously Al Emerson built this, it's with my friends FXR Mike doing like maybe the frame.
Yeah.
My boy TPJ building me a badass tank like that.
Yep.
And like working with some of these guys that I've known to or come to know and love through this industry, FXR related, to build a bike. I want to do this and I plan to do it, but the problem is I want to wait till I'm at a point where I know I won't have to sell it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I want it to be an 82. I want it to be a shovel.
Okay.
And I want it to look like that, but I want to do it with people that have been a part of my life doing this podcast and things like that, right?
Do like a friend build.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, man.
And I don't want to like be in a position where I'm like, fuck, man, I'm gonna have to let this one go. Like this is the bike that I want to do with people that I love, and it doesn't go. It never leaves, my brand, my whatever.
That's cool, man. Are you think you're gonna be able to do it soon, or this something?
If everything goes good this year, I don't have a tax problem. I have a tax misunderstanding.
Okay.
Like I've been self-employed for so long that, as I started making more money, I haven't quite got the right CPA and accountants in my shit. And this year I'm getting all that figured. And then after that, once, like, I'm not worried about making money. I can do that. I'm good at that. How much to give to the government, like, that's the hard part.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, figuring out the best way to keep
and
as
finding,
much as you can.
Like, I like working with people that, like, there's a CPA and accountants, they're everywhere, right? But I want a personal relationship. I want to text a motherfucker and be like, hey, man, how we looking? Oh,
right.
Cool. I don't want to have to schedule an appointment to go deal with someone that's dealing with my money. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so there's certain aspects where I'm maybe being a little bit more bullheaded, a little bit more stubborn than most people should be, but that's just how I feel. Like, if I could find a biker, not that I want to deal, but I would rather put any kind of money I'm doing. If there was a biker in Dallas or Worth that was also does accounting or CPA, I'm sold.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully he's good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, shoot yourself in the foot.
I'd rather keep that shit in the world of people that I know. I'd rather do it that way. But that's the only thing I'm holding back. Once I get that all done, dude, I got 40 fucking t-shirt designs. I'm going ham on this shit, dude. I'm good.
Opening up.
Do they still say ham?
We do.
Is that relevant?
I just made a ruling. We still say ham.
Yeah.
Survey says
yes.
So what has been, other than like what we've talked about, have you any other major issues or major concerns with this build that you haven't got to the point to address yet?
I guess like the last hoorah. So we have the Swingarm dialed in. We're buttoning up sheet metal stuff. I'm actually really close to getting ready to send it off for paint. Mm-hmm. My last biggest fear, and I guess I could overcome this by just putting the whole bike together and running it, but I just don't have the time. Is we're gonna, once the sheet metal and stuff finishes up, I'm gonna send it out for paint, and I'm gonna primer, powder coat the frame and stuff. All I have to do to the tank is I gotta TIG weld in the fuel injection pump. I'm actually running like a Sportster fuel injection.
Yeah. That's the only thing that keeps Sportsters alive is everybody buying those fuel pumps.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it does.
Left side gas tank.
Yep, keeping the twin cam going, keeping the Sportster going. I'm worried about wiring, and it sounds stupid because I have the complete stock wiring harness, but something in the back of my mind just tells me, when you take apart a brand new bike like we did, and it's just like an LS swap like I did in my truck. Everything's plugged into one spot, so it's not like
wait. LS swap in your Ford out there?
Yeah, I had to LS swap it. That's a whole different story. That's a whole different story. Let's not even get into that. We'll break the internet right now. People get mad. They're throwing things. But guess what? I just drove that thing.
Some dude just kicked his dog in his garage.
Yeah, literally. I actually watched the viewers just drop right off. That's what's gonna happen. But
was gonna log out just to log back in.
Yeah. But guess what? Like, I just drove 1,200 miles in like less than 24 hours. So do that in a stock.
Do you just keep the hood closed everywhere you go?
Yeah, I just don't tell anybody about it. But I made the mistake of doing it. But no, so like the harness and stuff, it's all plug and play into one spot.
Yeah.
So it should just plug in and fire up.
Yeah.
But like you know what I'm saying? Like it's a huge.
I can
undertaking.
imagine you're going to have to shorten and extend certain parts of the harness to really fit aesthetically.
Well, the way it laid out on the Pan America, everything was up top.
Okay.
So like it should still technically all fit pretty well, and it should.
See,
It already started.
I knew this was coming. All right, I'm just gonna touch subject on this real quick. The reason I LS swapped Ford, I am a Ford guy through and through. The only reason I did it is because I got a hell of a deal on the motor. It was I
Look,
can't even.
viewership just jumped up by 2. I think people are texting their friends, "Hey, get on! Look at this fucking dude."
this dude did a LS swap in a Ford.
They're like, you son of a bitch. Oh man, no, but
Well, I'm a Chevy guy, so thank you.
oh yeah, no problem, man. We're keeping them going. But yeah, so like that's like my biggest fear now. My biggest fear at first when we started the whole project is this going to work? But in the back of my mind was worst case scenario, I can always put the bike back together, have a Pan America. But when you kind of go out on the internet and break the internet by telling everybody, oh hey, I'm doing a Pan America here. With an FXR, you can't really go back. You got to go for it.
Yeah, people want to see that through, you know, in one form or fashion.
And I'm not going to do that.
It's
that
like
was
getting
never
on the
my
high
intention.
dive at the public pool. You just got to go through.
Yeah, and walk back on it. Yeah.
Oh shit, Timmy's up there.
Never mind, guys. I was just joking. Can you imagine like that late in the game, just be like, "Oh, see ya." Like I'm gonna put it back together. Now.
You got to come on the off day when no one's in there. You got to rent the pool. You got to go to a couple dives
That
first, get it down.
A couple buddies are like, "Man, you should have never said anything about that." bike
Goddamn,
that
what
was
the
done."
53 people did.
We need to talk about LSs on this show. That's what gets. Look at hell yeah, 4 sucks. That's awesome.
It's better than the Will Smith Chris Rock slap.
Yeah.
Keep your LS out my fucking Ford.
Oh man, memes can be made.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that's it, man. That's my biggest fear now. But I'm gonna, no matter what, we're gonna figure it out. That's just the intent.
What about like the hand controls? Are they running like traditional Harley style? I forget the measurements, but are they running more metric style within the handlebars?
I think it's more metric style actually.
Okay.
Like it you know, I've had metric bikes and stuff, and like it's not much different from them. Like the way everything's set up, the way it feels, the way it looks, it is nothing like a Harley.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they really tried something different, and I give them credit, man, because the bike, when I was riding the bike before I tore it apart, it is a bad bike. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had a chance to ride one.
So we were just talking about this last night at bike night because we've all said that Pan America seems like a great bike to have as a second bike.
Yeah.
Now,
For 100%.
everybody that I've talked to that's actually ridden those things quite a ways, they said that they're not as comfortable on the open road as a traditional Harley.
Right.
But they're funner if you want, you know,
zip around,
do things
back
like that,
road or
back
something.
roads, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, we did hit a couple back roads. I never really took a trail ride and didn't have the opportunity to, but I mean, I think if like I kind of joke around, I am going to buy another Pan America, like 100% going to do that because I love the bike. I think I will set it up for touring though, because like I think you can dial that bike in to make it a touring bike.
Maybe just like, you know, running their taller riser setup.
Yep.
And then if they kind of get their, like a better, I think maybe it was a seat issue. I don't know if it was too sporty of a seat.
Yeah.
And not as like, I don't know. This is all regurgitated information for me.
The most I think I did in a day on that bike was like 150, 160. So I can't really attest for the long road.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the seat was pretty plush. I mean, it felt good. But there is a couple companies I know making like a touring seat for it. They don't look good, but I mean, hell, I don't care what it looks like as long as it feels good and you're in the seat for 800 miles or whatever. But I guess the real person to talk to would be Dan because, I mean, shit.
Yeah, but Dan did it on a fucking hardtail chopper too, so I don't trust his balls and his
word
ass.
doesn't count. Yeah, he's crazy in his go. So, but yeah, so I don't know. I think touring wise, I think it would be a bike to set up for that, but I think it's accomplishable because you know all I can think about is having that bike on that Highway 50 that we're talking about.
That'd be dope.
There's so many sweet places you could just like hop off that highway where it's just exactly the same height as the dirt.
Yeah.
Rip right down in there and go like, oh man, that'd be a killer bike out west for sure. But
Yeah, I mean, Well, so the other thing I wanted to ask you about this is like with you having with the motor dropping, I don't know quite if it's dropping lower than the bottom frame rails, but I know you had to do that little member at the bottom.
Yeah, the keys, we call it.
The keys. So with it being that low, and also with you doing your mid controls or rear controls, what would you call them? More rears?
They're mids.
They're mids.
Yeah,
so if you're doing your
gonna
mid
keep them
control
mids.
situation there, what kind of height are you looking at on this bike?
So the height of the bike right now is actually higher than my RT.
Okay.
So with
Quite as high as a Pan America? Or what would you say?
The Pan America probably sits a little bit higher. I can't remember exactly what the ground clearance statistic was, but it's higher than my RT, and I got I think 2 over tubes on the front of my RT. With I know I have 2 over tubes. So I can't remember what the measurement compared to, but I think it's like 2 inches higher, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so that's pretty damn high.
Yeah, it's a high bike. It actually is going to be probably a little more challenging for me, but there's also a lot of sag because the shocks have so much movement in them with the monoshock.
How much lighter is that power plant versus like a traditional?
Well, I've lifted the whole motor by myself multiple times. Like and that's the transmission too. So I can just like bear hug it and like spin it around. I mean, it's not like super light, but I think it's definitely lighter than
most people bear hug like just a motor.
Evo or just a twin cam or whatever. Yeah, it's definitely lighter. I don't know what the bike's going to come in at. That's actually one of the things I want to do. Like one of the first things I want to do is I want to take the bike to like a scale and weigh it and kind of see, because I think a stock Pan America is 560 or something like that.
Yeah, it makes sense with them not having a fucking actual frame.
Yeah,
you know,
because I mean it's all the motor's the biggest part in the front end.
Aesthetically, like, what are you planning on doing with the bags? Are you running bags on this thing?
Yeah, so that was actually another really hard thing. So
you going panniards on this motherfucker?
Well, that's what I want to do. So like I was thinking about like doing like straight up, like adventure bike style on it.
Yeah.
But I think it would really take away from the real look of the bike. So my goal right now is I'm gonna run soft bags on it, like portables, so that like when I go on a road trip with it, because we haven't really come out and say it yet, but our plan right now is we're going to ride it to Virginia City. Like, I'm not trying to...
Yeah, be a man.
Yeah, like, we're going to build a show bike, and we're going to ride it to the bike show.
That's awesome.
That's way cooler than trailering.
Yeah, like
TBJ would do.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean... but
he lives in Carson City, or just north.
Yeah, it's like
30 miles.
I heard him say he's like 10 minutes away before, but... yeah, like, we plan on riding to the show, so... that's Kevin too, because Kevin's in on the build. Like I said, I think his is the only one's done right now. But we're gonna ride out there. So I'm gonna throw like soft bags over. Actually, Builtwell has like a real nice set of soft bags I'm gonna put on there. And then, but that's my plan for right now, because I think the bike will look better naked, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think my T Sport looks better without the T Sport bags on it.
Right.
But
you need the bags for when you're
I need them when I'm traveling, but like aesthetically just looking at it, I fucked up because I assumed I was always going to run the T-Sport bag, so I didn't paint any of that gray on the rear fender.
Oh yeah.
And now I feel like fuck, man. Like it looks like unfinished now.
Yeah, because like I think the bike, because I was going back and forth. I was thinking about like villain to hero, like RP bags or something.
Yeah.
But like everybody, again, that's what everybody has, like RP bags. I definitely wasn't running clamshells because it just does not fit the bike at all. Clamshells are way too round, bubbly. It doesn't fit anything, especially with that other valance on the front. But yeah, I'm just gonna run like temporary soft bags, so that way when I go road tripping with it,
I think it could have a really mean look with not having, like, say if you ran the soft bags as temporaries, then when you got to the show, pull them off.
Yep.
Kind of situation. I think it could have the right kind of stance and aggressiveness with the fairing and the lowers coming down and just like it kind of narrowing out to the rear.
And that's what I'm thinking, because like I don't want to take away from the monoshock. You don't want to hide
any of that shit.
No, and that's what I want you to see. All that I want you to see the amount of work that went into making all that work with that chassis. I want you to see the swing arm. The amount of time and work that just went into the freaking swing arm. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so the swing arm is a plate system, right, that you had laser cut and then it's bented.
Yeah.
It's bent.
Yeah, so what we do, Kevin found this, I can't remember where he found it at. There's like this this thing that kind of suggests where to do bend lines. So you don't have to do like a CNC press brake.
Okay.
So you can actually CNC bend stuff without having a CNC machine. So what we do is we laser cut in these like little, they look like little arcs, and they're opposite of each other every like however many, however long your piece is. And what it does is it comes to us in a flat plate of steel, and then I put it in a vise and actually hand bend it. And we tab everything. We do it in a system where we tab it, so it's all perfectly.
Yeah, I want to say big like FXR division did a whole frame that way. A couple years they did a bagger frame for a situation where it was Big Joe actually was the one. I think drawing a kind of a, there's a gap in my memory bank here, but basically Big Joe and FXR division had a situation where they built a performance bagger back in like 17, I believe, for Born Free.
Okay.
And it was a plate frame.
Okay. So
you know
like
what I mean?
they handmade the plate and everything. Yeah. Like there's it's a system, so you can actually take and do CNC bent flat sheet plate metal, whatever you want to call it, and do it with accuracy.
So you can get like, you can order the foldable kit and then weld it together at your house.
Yeah, like so what we'll do is like, it's so funny, man. It's old school as hell, like we're not a modern shop by any means, but like I'll hand draw it and then like give dimensions, and then I'll call Kevin and then he'll like model it and he'll send me like, oh, what about this? I'm like, nah, let's change this, or or nah, whatever. And then we go with it, and then we order it, and then it laser cuts out and it sends to us.
So I couldn't remember this. You probably already answered me, but so the monoshock, obviously the swing arm is one mount, but are you mounting to the back of the motor or to the frame, the existing?
To the monoshock?
Yeah.
It's to the back of the motor. So it actually the mount for the monoshock runs to the top motor mount on the rear jug.
Okay.
It's all one piece. So it's actually one giant grade 10, whatever you want to call it, bolt that goes to the back. It's like an aircraft grade that goes to the back there.
Dope. So after this build, hypothetically after this build, like, what the fuck is next, dude?
Honestly.
Or is it like tunnel vision for this? No idea. You got to get some, like, I feel like everybody was asking us, this is a very big tangent, but maybe it draws together, but we don't know what our big trip looks like next year until we're on our trip this year.
Right.
Right?
You kind of plan it where you're going.
Yeah, like when we're on our trip, we're like, what would be fun to do next? We're sitting around a campfire or in a hotel drinking or whatever. Like, what we should do next year? Let's do this. So it's like in the trip, you get the idea for the next trip, right? So in the build, do you think the idea for the next build comes along? One of the weirdest things, and this, I'm not trying to steal your show here or anything like that.
No, man.
But I used to paint lowriders back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And one of the guys told me a long time ago, he goes, don't put everything you do on one paint job. Like, you know what I mean?
Save some for the next.
Save some for the next, or highlight one thing in this paint job and then highlight the next thing in your next one. So, in some kind of weird way, I've always thought about that. Like, don't put it all out there, right? Like, leave some mystery for the next build or whatever.
Right.
And
before I answer that, like, I have one question for you. Like, as a painter, do you ever, like, think to yourself, like, when you're painting a bike, like, do you think that you hold, like, a little bit of extra, like, if you're painting your own personal bike? Like, there has to be some kind of, because, like, painters to me, like, that's, a builder's one thing, but, like, a painter, like, that's what everybody first draws you to the bike.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this just in general, like in the general thing, but the weird thing about being a painter right now, or me, my world, right, is that, like, my paint, in conjunction with a lot of other bad motherfuckers, are kind of the trending paint of the industry right now, right? So I paint now to persuade the direction of custom paint in this genre of bikes,
right?
If that makes sense.
No, it does,
right?
Because you see more and more like bagger.
Yeah, and so with the bagger, the performance baggers being still a pretty young child in the world of motorcycles. I've said this on the last podcast. I think that performance baggers has it's still lacking like real high quality paint. There obviously are a lot of great painters in there, but there's also a lot of people that are paying the guys to do it on the side of the house, not professional shit.
Right.
And you can see it in the design of things, right? So when you're designing a paint job, I'm back in the day I was playing catch up. I was trying to paint to get noticed, and now I'm trying to paint to inspire. Does that make sense?
No, it does, man. Because like you're at a level now where everybody knows who you are, and I mean your paint's pretty. I mean it's out there, man. I mean you painted a ton of bikes, so it's like, where do you go from there? So it's like you're kind of. I mean, when you see baggers, it's your paint. Like,
yeah,
it's
one of those weird things too, because I also don't have as much work out there as a lot of other people. Like Schultz has a lot more. Taylor Schultz has a lot more Dynas and FXRs on the street with his work on it than I do.
Yeah.
I don't. I just think like when I have a style that like my whole life, it came together where I got good enough to be noticed nationwide or worldwide with paint, and also fell in love with a certain type of bike that was the perfect timing. Like my whole life is timing, honestly, with this shit.
Right.
Because, you needed to be good at certain of this thing as a painter. You need years. Like you can kind of come out the gate and be good at one thing, but the whole gambit of being a custom painter is there's a lot of computer work involved. There's a lot of, knowing your canvas, which is going to be the motorcycle, knowing, what colors are you. And so what you might notice with some painters is I have a color palette that is very monochromatic with splashes of color.
Right.
Some painters are like have the ability to just put brown and green and blue together, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. That would never come from me. Right. Not in a bad way. I just don't. I could never. That's amazing paint job. I don't see it.
You can't see it before.
Yeah, I can't see it. Right.
It's just not your
I know
style.
every shade of gray and every fucking shade of black and every shade of white, and then I have like 5 other colors that I throw in the mix. I'm like, bam, there you go, bitch. You know what I'm saying?
Emerald style, bam.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's very strange, like when you kind of break it all down. But also now, I feel like nowadays painters 20 years ago in the height of the chopper era, like, you had a chopper tank and they wanted flames, or they wanted scallops, or they wanted some checkers, or some pinstriping down the middle, or a mural, some fucking. Nowadays it's like they want all the same thing.
Yeah. So
there's one style.
Nobody trying to go outside
and
the box.
40 variations of one style.
Right.
And every once in a while we get lucky and we get to do a flame job.
You know what
I mean?
Well, it's so funny you said that, because like my buddy Brian does all our paint back home. We laugh about the flame job, because like nobody does flames anymore. Like we keep talking about, man, we should have done a flame job. Like actually my blue FXR, the Nautilus, when we were doing the squid on it, he had it all in the base coat blue, and I'm like, man, this thing would look sweet with like gold flames.
It would.
It would be killer, He's like, do you want to do it? We could do it. And I'm like, no, we got to pay homage to the Nautilus, So.
It's a I don't know. It's a tough. I wouldn't call it a burden, because it's not really a burden. It's kind of an opportunity to pass the torch, if you will.
Yeah.
And as somebody I've been in the part of the motorcycle custom paint scene since 2004 in some form or fashion.
Right.
And a lot of my idols growing up, they're no longer relevant. I hate saying that word, but it's the truth. You know what I mean?
It's the way it goes, man. Industry phases out. You get new blood, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Everything in the world, custom painters have always been like one of those things where they'll paint anything, right? Like your mailbox, your car, they'll do a canvas for your house, and then your bike, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, with the popularity of custom paint getting bigger, essentially, everything is about niche. Like you want to like be a professional in a world. You want to be a professional in a world of this, right? So yes, I did a lot of lowrider shit growing up. Could I hold a torch to the lowrider guys right now? Absolutely not. Those dudes will blow me out of the water with their canvases, because they're used to that Monte Carlo and that 59 Impala. They know the lines. They know how to
own their skills.
They own it.
Yeah, right.
On those canvases.
Right.
And I'll fuck them up if they try to do a bagger.
Yep.
Straight up. Like, I know a bagger in and out and how to pull lines to make it unique and different.
Right.
They know their shit. I know my shit. So, in my opinion, yeah, you can go ask that lowrider guy to do a paint job on your bagger, and you're going to get quality work. Is he going to have the design capabilities that I will?
No.
Right?
Right.
So that's kind of the thing. It's like a mini truck dude can weld up a frame for you.
Right.
Is it going to have the aesthetics that you need as a bike builder? Is it going to, are the gaps going to be closed?
Yeah.
Are there going to, all the things that make you a professional in this realm, the skills are the same. Bend metal, weld metal, hammer metal.
Right.
It doesn't change from that frame to this.
It's been done for how
but
many years?
this canvas
Right.
requires an eye for that canvas, and that's the difference that I think paint late to the game is starting to kind of happen now, where if you want to be one of the best painters in this game right now, you got to be a motorcycle painter. You don't get to be I'll paint whatever the fuck is under my hands right now.
Yeah, you got to be known as a bike guy.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I agree, because a lot of stuff out there, it's so off the wall now. It's like if you're not up to date with the current trends, you're not gonna get what the guy wants.
Yeah.
Because he's looking at your stuff and going to his guy and going, man, I want that.
Yeah.
This guy's
And that guy's like, oh man,
oh,
like,
man,
well,
I'm gonna try. I'll see if I can. He's not gonna pull it off. It's just.
well, I think we all want to be asked to do what we're good at. Like,
Right.
If someone's going to come to you and ask you to build a bike, you want them to want what you want them to be coming to you because you build what you build, right? Not because like you can build, right? Hey, man.
Yeah, like somebody.
You know how to weld, right? Because this guy out here in California is building this crazy shit. Can you match that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want you to come from me.
Yeah, for your style, because everybody's got their own style.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, not to sound, it's like it's almost your signature in the industry.
It is.
I mean, everybody's got their style. You can walk up to like a certain bike and be like, oh, so and so built that bike.
And that's the point. I mean, if you think about 20 years ago, as much, the industry seemed like it was so much bigger then. It's technically bigger now, but we just have less media covering it, if that makes sense. So
I know it's crazy, because you think about it, like this stuff was all over television not that long ago.
Way smaller than it is now.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's what we always talk about. Like, do you think it'll ever come back like that? Because can you imagine if like some of this stuff was on TV now? Like,
well, that's why that's the concept. That's my buddy Zombie Mike said it best. I don't want this shit to die while I'm the fucking the
at the helm.
At the helm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so yeah, maybe I get a little crazy wanting to like curate like this world, but like I do take pride and ownership in the fact that like I don't want motorcycles to be like, yeah, that shit's done. Harley died, all this shit,
Right.
while I was taking that torch from these other guys. Whether or not those guys actually felt like they were carrying a torch or not,
Right.
that's on them. But I definitely feel the responsibility now to pay it forward.
Well, that's the
You know what
thing,
I'm saying?
like those guys are all getting older. They're kind of phasing out. They're parking the bikes, or they're kind of done with it. It's like our generation now. It's like coming in and turning into like performance baggers. What the hell was that a few years ago? Like, that didn't exist.
Apparently it was everywhere.
Everywhere, everybody had performance baggers.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
What a world that's going more electric by the day and more automated and easy. And
We're going to storm the Capitol.
the rest, the
Yeah.
the whole point of the world is to be easy now. Motorcycles are still something that they break, and it takes a lot of work, and it's not a late. You know what I mean? If it kind of goes against the trend of the way the world is going,
Right.
And
Maintenance
so
free.
yeah, you could almost say it's as tough as ever to really keep it going.
Well, that's kind of like my question in the overall scheme of things is like, where are all these major industries going to go? Because it's like, Harley's already doing, well, they tried.
Yeah, they weren't ready.
No.
How you grew up, it's similar to how I grew up, and a lot of people in our kind of age group, right? What worries me is because we didn't necessarily grow up with YouTube.
No.
Like, it was a part of our life growing up, but not like
Later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like we were ingrained with YouTube as a kid, right? So we had to go outside a little bit and play or find, like when that Harley dude was coming out to, you know, bang your mom or whatever.
Yeah. It's all right. We all know it.
Yeah. When he was coming through, it's like that shit was cool to you. Like that dude's on a bike and that looks rad. Like that was influence because you weren't looking at that dude and Mr. Beast on YouTube. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Like that was it. That was my introduction to the
fucking
whole world.
Dude is cool. You know what I'm saying? Like because you really didn't see that every day.
No,
you know?
you didn't. And that's what's funny is like still back then, it really wasn't that long ago, but like back then, like they were still kind of like outlaws, you know? Like it isn't cool like it is nowadays. Yeah. Like when guys rode Harleys or any kind of bike, they were looked at as like, oh,
exactly.
They're not really
it's just like the meme with the sleeve tattoo used to mean you're an outlaw or you killed somebody. Now it means you're a chef with like a really good balsamic vinaigrette.
Yeah, that's exactly true, dude. Like man,
things have changed.
That sounds good, actually. By the way,
yeah, that's 100% true, man. Because like I just had a chef not that long ago. He had like full sleeves, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to work in New York City." He's like, "You know, badass." But yeah, that's where
we used to do heroin all the time. Like, goddamn, this dude's more biker than me.
Yeah. Yeah, telling you stories like, holy shit.
But, well, I mean, like I think like you're like you're kind of, I don't know, like you could really be that like that passing of the torch from all these things that you're involved in, like being a builder in a sense, like really like pushing the envelope of what's capable on these bikes, doing the amount of money you're investing. I mean, honestly, buying a fucking brand new bike and taking the motor out and putting it in another bike.
Right.
Like that's an investment. That's a big investment. Also being involved with Cannonballs, which is, you know, like trying to break that barrier of like that's an old man money game.
Right. To
make it more accessible and understandable to a younger demographic. That's the only way that these things stay going, right?
Right. And that's the big thing. Like if I can accomplish like just a little bit of what you just said, you know, like any of it really, I'd feel good about it. Because it's like, I don't want the industry, no part of the industry to die. Because, like, you know, at the end of the day, we all make fun of, like, you know, oh, dude's big wheel bagger or this or that. But, you know, they're still riding bikes. They're still out there. They're still doing it.
Yeah.
I don't care if they trailer it, whatever. They're still in the game. They're still spending money in the industry. They're keeping the industry alive.
Yeah.
You know, we might make fun of them, whatever. Nobody gets along 100% of the time. It's just the way the world is. But
we always have somebody to make fun of.
Yeah, I mean, if we're not ripping on you or ripping on somebody else or even ourselves, we rip on ourselves all the time. But like, I just, especially the old bikes and stuff, it's like, you know, my biggest fear is like the younger generation, they don't like to work on stuff, you know. And I'm not saying that everybody, I'm not lumping everybody in, but like that's why I always like the FXR stuff because like, you know, those guys are still. Like you said, when you went out on your FXR, you had to tighten bolts and do this and that, and you heard ticks, and you were listening.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't just get on the bike and go. You don't go to Harley. You don't buy a brand new lowrider or ST, whatever, and go out and just rip it across country and be like, yeah, I'm a biker. That's not being a biker. Like, yeah, anybody can do that.
It's a form of being a biker.
It's a form of it, yeah.
But there's levels to this shit.
Yeah, but there's also fads. Like, somebody might do that, and then at the end of the day, they might sell the bike and never do it again.
Well, I like to say, like, for someone, because I did that. Like, I was on a bike that was virtually, if you didn't fuck with it, it will work, right? But when you travel across the country, you know, the challenge at first is you, like, can you do it?
Right.
Especially on a new twin cam, right? Can you ride your bike across country? Oh, you can? Cool. Can you do it on Evo?
Right.
All right. You now, because you're gonna have to wrench a little bit on the Evo, a little bit, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, all right. Can you do it on a shovel?
Yeah. Can you do it? Yeah. Keep wheeling it back, right?
Yeah. Keep wheeling it back. Next thing you know, you're fucking like. I have no idea what points are. I've heard it so many times. I just like yeah those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Points again. The old ignition systems. Yeah. So like everything.
Dudes are like talking on the podcast. Yeah, man. Points when I'm like. Heard that before. Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah,
you too. Okay. That's a common thing.
Yep.
Stay away from that. You know what I mean?
So what we got to do is whenever you guys are planning on coming up in our area again, you got to let me know. Reach out, and we're going to put you on some old bikes, and we'll go out riding. And we're going to get you on the old bike bug. That's what we're going to do. Because I'm telling you right now, man, once you get on it.
I won't lie. Like, I always have a mild case of chopper fever, which I know it's not necessarily what you're talking about.
Well,
but I have to work my way backwards, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have to work, like, I started on a twin cam bagger. I went to a Dyna that was going backwards, and then and then I went to an FXR as like, you know what? I'm ready to go full chopper. I'm gonna go to FXR.
Right.
Yeah, and then I've always dreamed of having like a shovel head or something like that. I don't know what it is about shovel heads. Like, I've never owned one, or I've only ridden Mike's FXR Mike shovel head.
Yeah.
But I just like the way those motors look, and so I kind of fuck with those more than I guess panheads and knuckleheads. But also, like, I'm not very versed or deep into that culture to where I'm like, yeah, fuck. Like, I don't have a dad that came to my house or dad, period, to be honest with you, and that like ever ingrained
inspired you. To
want like to. I had a grandfather that was a Chevy guy, and that's why I fuck with you about the Ford thing, right?
Right.
But here I am driving a Jeep, so fuck me, right?
Oh man, what the hell? I totally went the wrong way. Well, that's the thing. Like,
he's not around anymore, so I can do that.
You can, you can have like your outlook on bikes and like what you think you like and stuff. But when you start like dabbling in them and actually like getting to, ride them and just kind of, see how it all works, it's kind of like, engulfs you. At least it did for me, just because I always like old stuff beginning, but like I said, it's kind of history, like where we all come from, and that's what you don't want to die. Like, the motor company, you don't want that, like the stuff that they used to make, the stuff they make now. Like, that's what's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I just, I can wrench on a 1913, and I'm putting a brand new Pan America together. Talk about the most.
You got range, dude.
Yeah, like you want to talk about like crazy amounts of like. What's funny is like it's all under the same roof. I have 1919s and 13s and all these old bikes, and then you got a brand new Pan America getting built right now. And it's so funny because somebody walks into my garage and like what? Like what? And it's funny because like all these guys,
you wanted to talk shit about the new bikes, but they see you fuck with them.
Yeah,
so you're like, oh,
and that's what's funny because like a lot of my friends are older guys, and like my business is antique parts, so it's like they're like, wait, you dabble in new stuff too? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's like.
They drop the part and leave.
Yeah.
Fuck Jason Momoa. They should do an ad campaign around you.
Yeah. Like that's like he's in a lot of stuff that like we're involved with. Like because he's huge in antique bikes. So it's like he's all over that whole stuff.
I'm not talking shit at all, but I just found it extremely odd that Harley's new campaign was to campaign old motorcycles that don't exist anymore within their brand.
You're talking about like going back to the dirt?
No, just period. Like, like they used him to market their whole brand moving forward, right?
Oh, right.
Because of course when they did the Softail drop, he got one of the bikes.
Oh,
and they spray painted it, right?
Yep.
And then obviously, he's a Harley guy and he's fucking Aquaman, so you got to lean into it, right?
Right.
Which I'm making fun right now, but I do value his kind of co-signing on this culture, because if that helps young kids that like fucking Aquaman to get into it, and the content he puts out is fucking awesome. It's really good shit.
Oh yeah, it's like second to none, man.
And but the thing is, I just find it so weird that like Harley would use that to market new motorcycles.
Yeah, well, because like he did a thing. I think he did a thing for Pan America.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, for sure.
And
he had a clothing line. They had a clothing line that he was a big part of too, and it was like vintage, like racing. Like looking through your page, some of those. Cannonball.
Yeah.
Like they brought old stuff that looked like that back, and I know he was on a big thing of that. I felt duped. I know that because I felt duped. They teased like an announcement, and I watched it, and it was like a clothing line. It was just old stuff. I was like,
you're like, oh
wah,
man,
wah. Yeah,
because we always joke like Harley's gonna bring back like castings that like make like so many knuckles or whatever, because they still have some of that stuff. It's like, no, they won't do it. But yeah, I think they're like using his voice to, like you said, like get out to people and try to sell more. Like let's all be honest, Harley's out there to sell motorcycles. They don't care.
Yeah, well,
they want to make the numbers, which is good.
I can't remember who it is, but they're basically like lobbyists for motorcycles to be in movies. They have a whole like, I forget what it was, but there's a whole like group of people in California, in Hollywood, that try to lobby to get motorcycles within movies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know if they're just like sitting back taking checks or they need some new blood in there, but
That's what it's kind of funny you say it. Like my buddy Tom that I do the business with, he actually they like reach out to because they film a lot of movies in Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's a cheap city to film in, and it looks a lot like New York and stuff. They reach out to him because he has all those antique bikes. So like whenever they're doing like old movies and stuff, like they reach out to him and use his bikes.
nice. Hey, Jaden, by the way, the offer, fucking dope. I've just finished the all six.
Right? Yeah.
What
It's
is
sick.
it?
So the offer on Paramount. So if you watch Yellowstone,
Oh, yeah,
1883.
yeah, yeah.
So on Paramount fucks right now. They got the Mayors of Kingstown, great fucking show. Obviously Yellowstone in 1883, and then Halo went pretty
Halo's
good.
yeah.
So
I watched like the first 2 episodes of that. I thought it was
The
pretty
Halo?
good. Yeah, I thought it was pretty.
yeah. So the offer is, go ahead and tell them because it's fucking awesome, dude.
So the offer is like kind of like the Winning Time with the Lakers,
Which is a
right
fucking
now,
amazing show.
which it's I don't know if you wouldn't call it a mockumentary, but you wouldn't call it a documentary. Like it's they take certain liberties, but it's based off historical things, and historical things happened during the time, and they hit on those. But it's basically about the making of the movie The Godfather. And
Really?
and if you have Paramount to watch it, then you automatically have Godfather. You'll see it, Godfather 2. I would not only recommend, but I would insist rewatch The Godfather. I've seen it 30 times. I watched
I've
it.
seen
I
it a
watched
ton.
it right before this. It had been a couple of years, and I'm so glad I did, just to refresh everything. And man, it's so good.
Yeah.
Just the characters. It's got a Mad Men feel. All the women are very. I love that vintage look.
Yeah.
The guy. There's not a scene in there where somebody's not just smoking
Chain
cigarettes, whether
smoking
it's
like
an
a-
office
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a restaurant, whatever.
That's awesome.
And it's about the mob. There's a book. It's kind of based off the main producer's memoir or whatever. I'm gonna go back and read the book. After I didn't know it existed, but until this, but it's good, man. It's really
It's
for
really good,
TV
yeah.
shows.
I'll have to check that out. I
Every
heard of
episode's
it.
probably like 60 to 68 minutes, so it's a fat ass hour. Every
So it's
one.
funny because you talked about like Pittsburgh being a place they film a lot. So in that TV show, they were talking about how like they wanted to film this movie in New York, but New York didn't want them to film it there because it technically painted Italians as a bad light.
Right.
So they were looking at other cities like Atlanta and St. Louis and shit to be the alternative, but it was like it has to be New York. So they went through all this fucking shit with like the mob and everything. Not to spoil anything for everybody, but
Yeah.
to that point, you know what I mean?
To get it there. Yeah, because like that's like when they did like the Dark Knight and everything. They did that all in Pittsburgh, and then
Oh, for real?
yeah.
Oh, fuck me, then.
Louisiana has a thing like that now. There's certain states that have big.
A lot of
big
people they film a lot of
tax
shit
breaks
in Atlanta now.
Atlanta is
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah.
dude.
Georgia's another one. There are certain states that have really been over backwards. I think California, the last handful of years, have gotten so out of control with their taxes and fees and stuff like
Masks.
that there's a lot of film companies that have said, let's find somewhere else.
Right.
And like I said, I know Louisiana. They did on top of a lot of stuff, but the Suicide Squad films there. But there's
yeah.
a lot of stuff that gets filmed in Louisiana, and Georgia is another big one.
Yeah,
where
Atlanta's huge.
The state, just like I said, gives them real big tax breaks, and they basically incentivize them to come in and film. And if you watch the credits at the end of it, it'll go film in the state. They'll put like
It
the
has the
state's
logo,
logo,
with
yeah,
the peach on it.
yeah.
Walking
Yeah.
Dead was huge. On
Walking
it. It's
Dead,
like that
most of the
all-
Marvel movies are all out of
Yep,
Georgia.
and that all started right then because like Walking Dead's been on TV for freaking ever, dude. Like 12 years or something.
Yeah.
I actually stopped watching it because I just got bored with it.
Once Rick went away, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
I was even kind of dumb before then because it was always the same concept: move to a new city,
Yeah.
fight the boss,
It was-
kill the boss, move to the next city, But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, to basically kind of wrap that part up, it's like there is, in order to inspire youth, you need more pop culture, you need more mainstream media, if you will, like movies, those types of television shows to kind of put motorcycles out there.
Right.
You have to paint them in a light that, like, honestly, like a YouTuber or normal dudes building bikes, like we're the deep cut of this culture.
Oh, for sure.
We're not the surface value because we're not fake. We're real people that
Right.
do this shit. When they put this stuff in a movie, like it becomes like you're fantasizing, like you fantasize about being Harley Davidson and the Marble Man, right?
Yeah.
right? That's something like, fuck, I want to do that. I want to be the guy that shows up in the gas station and someone sticks them up and I fucking take the gun and then I give it to my buddy as a gift later on at the bar later that night.
Right.
There's scenarios that make it like lore, but that whole the Harley Davidson Marvel Man, Stone Cold, what was the other one with Charlie Sheen? It was like fuck.
Oh, where he goes undercover.
Yeah.
Dude, I used to watch that movie all the time.
I know it's on the tip of my tongue, but those things, like, those movies are so dated now.
Yeah.
If I showed my son one of those, he'd be like, bro.
They'd fall asleep.
My boys are on Fortnite, right, trying to go fucking
Yeah.
fuck some people up, man.
Well,
like, I'm not trying to watch this stupid shit
Well,
right
that's
now.
the other bad thing is, like, kids now watch kids play video games instead of actually playing video games.
We
which I
watch
still
dudes
don't
fucking
understand.
ride bikes
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Well, that's
so
true. But
we watch dudes play football, and it's the same shit.
I just don't get to, I don't know. Like, if I'm going to play a video game, I think I'd rather just play it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we are, too. But, like, that was where I felt the same way until I can't remember what
Like,
podcast I
what are
listened
the old
to.
guys now making fun of the younger generation?
I can't remember what podcast it was, but it was a perfect analogy where, like, you know, some dude's like, hey, Timmy, like, you're going to watch the dude play a video game, you fucking nerd? And he's like, you're watching dudes play football on TV and you got their jersey on, you dumbass.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, all right.
And it was like, okay, yeah, fuck me, right?
Yeah, I guess
it's just
it
a new
makes
world.
sense, yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's like we all, because we grew up with video games becoming nothing to what it is now,
Right.
we don't understand that people make millions of dollars to play video games, right?
No, it's crazy. It's a crazy
They
concept.
make millions of fucking dollars playing video games.
Yep.
And like, we're used to seeing football players and basketball players and golfers and all this shit make millions of dollars. So we're like, yeah, that dude makes $1 million. I'll watch him do whatever he does.
Yeah.
But we're disconnected because a video game when we grew up was just, you know, this
Well, a lot of
$30
time,
piece that
yeah.
you bought and you put it in your deal and you're like, oh, fuck
It's
it,
just
I'm
you
done.
at home, yeah.
Through your controller and shit, you know?
And now you're playing with dudes all over the world and stuff, you know?
Well, back to your point about the about motorcycles, we've all got the sickness. So when we see a motorcycle scene in Captain America, we go, "Oh, that's dumb. It could never, whatever."
You call it out,
But
yeah.
there's a lot of kids that's their introduction. You know what I mean? That they may not have any other thing other than any other interaction with a motorcycle other than seeing it in a movie like that, and that's the thing that goes, "Wait a minute," and that's what kicks them off.
Yeah.
And
Just watch any Tom
Just
Cruise
if-
movie ever.
He's always on. If
Mission
we,
Impossible 2 goes hard.
it was
Don't pay
really
attention
good.
to those tires changing from street to knobbies like in one shot. But other than that, you're good. You're
He
good.
calls it out instantly.
Yeah, it was Beyond the Law, Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to watch that all.
Dude, if we can get like a legit MCU quality Ghost Rider
Oh my
with
god.
a Dyna
yes.
Bro.
Yes. With a
A
Dyna
dude
Bro.
just like flipped up hat, says like Dyna Bro on it, fucking Dixon flannel, tall socks, makes a deal with the devil, becomes like the new fucking
gold, Jerry, gold.
dude. This shit writes itself, bro.
Dixon flannel. I love it.
Dixon releases they have a whole connection. They have a whole collab with fucking MCU and Disney. He went super fucking like Danny's through the roof now. He's like fucking killing the game, right? He's got a Disney flannel. You can pick it up at Disney World and Disneyland, whatever
Oh,
the fuck is
man.
the difference.
That's
The
next
Ghost
level.
Rider
He ended
flannel.
up buying like the Arizona Cardinals or something. He'd have enough money.
Yeah. He's like that could happen
You never know, dude. Sky's the limit, man.
for sure. Oh man. So first off, I want to I don't know who, I can't remember who gave me this Chivas. Do you Chivas Regal?
Chavez.
I think it's Chivas.
Chivas Regal.
Chivas.
I'm gonna give you my take real quick. Is it on me? So this is $250. This is $40. They're both Scotch. This fucks. This shit is just to like say I got money, dude. I get it.
It's all about the label, man. It's all about the label.
That's for Big Trouble.
Calling them out.
This
No,
is courtesy of Big Trouble Bell Bonds. If you're ever in Florida and you find yourself in a pinch, call my dudes at Big Trouble Bell Bonds. They're gonna help you out.
That stuff's actually really
This
good.
is pretty fucking good, dude.
Yeah,
I can't remember the cat that gave me this at the camp out, but
12 year.
for
Is that 12 year?
yeah, 12 year.
It's actually good just on the rocks.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. But anyway, dude, thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me down.
So, are you planning? Do you think you're going to make the deadline?
Oh, I'll definitely make the deadline. I'm actually trying to get it done like way sooner. So the original deadline, like for us, was Daytona, and then obviously that went to shit. And then the next deadline was like end of this month, and then we got the bomb dropped on us that there's going to be another race for Sons of Speed. So we're like, oh man, and I was going to get in on that. So all my time, all my focus went into building a bike for that and having that ready. So now it's like my big plan is I want to be riding it like before the end of June.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think it's doable. By the time I get back home from this trip, the sheet metal I need will be there. I can get it fabbed up. It should be doable.
Are you planning on bringing it to Sturgis?
Yeah, I'll have it in
That'd be
Sturgis.
badass.
Yeah, because I don't want to necessarily do shows with it because like the Virginia City thing, I want to kind of they obviously invited us to be a builder. I don't want to be like entering the show
it out,
and then kind of ruin the whole awe of it. But do I plan on having it there? It'd be nice. Yeah,
it'd be dope.
Yeah, if you have it there, you don't have to do a show. You can still have it there. But yeah, so that's the plan, and then obviously Virginia City. So
Johnny Blaze is the MCU Sea Bear. Fuck with it. Hell yeah, big sexy. That's dope. But yeah, man, I think it'd be dope. Bringing the bike to Sturgis would be cool as shit.
Yeah, because
just put like a sign that says no photos.
Yeah, could do that. That'll work real well. Yeah. Like honestly,
fuck this dude.
Yeah,
People like rules.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, for sure, we're definitely gonna take a photo. Like I feel like it should be okay as long as I'm not like entering in a show. Because like I said, I don't want to take away from.
I haven't talked to Big Joe yet about what his plans are. I think we did on the podcast. We got drunk, so I don't remember anything. But I don't remember because I know they're putting on the Wango Tango this year, so I don't know how and what he wanted to do for the Sturgis show, for the FXR show.
Right.
Because last year, he had a lot of us make trophies for it, and he hasn't asked me to make one yet. I don't know what he's planning on doing, but at the same time, like I'm gonna be gone for a whole month. So if he needs me to do something, like I need to fucking know now, bro.
Yeah, because like August is coming, man. Like,
for sure.
That's like crazy to say because I feel like at least for us, like we just are getting out of winter, man. Our spring has been.
You should move.
Oh, it's been terrible.
You should move.
I've wanted to many times.
There's warmer places.
Yeah, normally our spring's not that bad. It's been bad. Like it literally, actually, with the day I left my house, our high was like 60 or 59.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But, yeah. So like it's just now getting nice, and I'm like thinking already it's almost June. Like with all these bike events coming on right now, and we all know it. Like all summer long, it's just bike event. So it's like you got to pick and choose your battles. It's like, oh man, it's kind of overwhelming, but. Yeah, I'm gonna have it done. Definitely done for this thing because like I have to have ride time in on it before I bomb across country on it.
Yeah,
like, that's just my motto. I don't.
If you have it done for Sturgis, man, like I would love to shoot it for you, like photos.
Yeah.
Just shoot it, and then if it's something that, if we get the right time, right place, right lighting.
Yeah.
Great photos, and if you needed to. For any kind of magazine, whatever, I'd love to give you that.
That'd be awesome. I'd definitely take you up on that. Because that's out of my wheelhouse. Like I don't do that stuff, obviously, but I'd definitely take you up on that.
No, it'd be a great. I don't know. Like for me, it's like shooting, like photography. It's like this weird thing. Like when you growing as a painter. Early on when I was painting bikes, like me and my friends just painted bikes. Like, hey, dude, bring your shit over. Let's fucking paint it.
Right.
It's practice, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
But it was always dope and it worked out well. They're like, oh fuck, this is badass. This is cool.
Right.
It was just such a great feeling to give somebody that you cared about, right?
Yeah.
Photography kind of became that, like because I couldn't really give paint away the way I used to when I was a kid, because it was so time consuming and I had so much more responsibility in life.
Right.
But when I got into photography, it felt cool to take a really great picture of my friend or my friend's bike and be like, look, man, you look fucking cool as shit right here, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's huge, man, because it's like I'm looking at your pictures, this even around here, you know, and it's like, this is high quality stuff. Yeah, like that.
I didn't take that, but I would love to have taken those.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Tickle bitties.
But like, yeah, like that's stuff you don't normally get because normally it's a bunch of dudes on a cell phone and you're like, click, click. Oh yeah, look at that, it's cool. But
and it's usually an Android.
Yeah.
Fucking. Oh my god, barf.
Oh no. I did the LS swap and I have an Android.
Oh shit, dude, we're cutting this off now, dude.
Get him out of here, dude's toast.
Dude, you're gonna.
They did a study on Android phones, like people that run Androids
commit suicide.
No, they're just way better in every way.
They have a problem with technology, so they're like, I want my own memory card.
I don't even, dude. My phone doesn't even have a memory card. I haven't have a memory card.
So bad weather aside, you think we can get a commitment on you riding that Pan Am down to the camp out next year?
Who? Somebody asking?
No, yeah, me.
Oh, you were asking? Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was asking.
Because hopefully you won't have, if you know, granted you're not in the middle of a big project or something like that.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, the only reason that I really couldn't do it this year was just because of the races stuff, like that just came out of nowhere, and that shouldn't be a thing every year. So. I've been really wanting to go to the camp out. It's been like I said since last year, since I started like watching you guys. So I would definitely do that, man.
I just personally like to see that one in like the showcase and see people's heads just explode as they walk around. And check it out.
I'm interested, man, because it's like, you know, when I get it done, it's going to be a fully functional bike, and you know, like I said, I plan on riding it all over the place. So it's like,
so what we did this year at the camp out. We did a show, right? And I want to lean more into that. I want to find ways to like make it kind of. I would love for it to have the level of like draw that like what the Virginia City thing is,
right?
But I also don't want it to become like there's this fine line between
just
grassroots camp out party. And then, like, I don't want to bring – I want the seriousness. Like, yeah, let's build a badass bike, take it to the camp out and ride it and have a good time and party. But I want this seriousness where, like, dudes are, like, eyeballing each other across the fucking field. Like, my shit's better than yours. Like, I don't want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a bunch of trailer cranes rolling in. And
yeah, like, this is all the marbles here. Like, no.
Yeah.
This is about building a cool bike and coming and like, spilling beer on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
having
like,
a good time.
So that's what we're about, you know. It's like, you know, building bikes, riding them, functionality, look cool.
Yeah.
As best I can. Like, you know, when we showed up at all the shows last year, it was like, you know, when I showed up at the FXR show when you were at, I rolled in there and I was like, you know, we got like 20,000 miles on this thing. You know, I cleaned it the best I could.
Yeah.
You know, that was all I had.
Fuck them.
So, yeah, it's like, it is what it is. But, yeah, it's just. That's just the way it is, you know. There's a fine line. You're gonna have your trailer queens, and
social media becomes part of that show, right? Because when you pull into that show and people know that you're finishing the Triple Crown at that point, like those bugs and those fucking rock chips and all that shit that you earned on that journey, like you're proud of that,
right? Well, we actually, so the group and I, we had a big powwow like right before we rolled into Sturgis because it was like, and even Virginia or the West Coast Jam. Because on the way to the West Coast Jam, we hit rain for hundreds of miles. Like, it was a lot of rain when we left. Like, torrential downpours. And it was like, dude, our bikes looked like absolute, you know, just absolute dog shit. So it was like, do we clean them? Like, do we not clean them? And after, like, the third day of staring at my bike just looking absolutely atrocious, I was like, I gotta, like, wipe it. And my boy, like, Cowboy's, like, yelling at me. He's like, don't wipe it. And I'm, like, wiping it. I'm like, I gotta wipe it, you know. He's like, you know,
fuck you.
And then like I went over to his bike and I like cleaned his spot, and he's like, damn it, like no, he's got to clean his spot. So it's like it's just one of those things. And obviously they weren't like I wasn't like polishing or detailing it, like wiping. I mean, like grab a dirty rag and wipe like coats of dust and dirt off the thing from the road grime and stuff. But yeah, it was just one of them things. And as soon as we rolled in to the West Coast Jam, it was pitch black. I can't tell you how many cell phones, lights, they're like inspecting every part of the bike. I'm like, dudes, the bike's trash. Like, I just rode, you know, like 2,000 some miles. Like, it's not good. Like, don't even look at it. We're looking at like immaculate FXRs. Every inch is perfect, toothbrush clean, you know. It's like,
that you know, I feel the pain on that because when I'm traveling as well, like I have this obligation with all my brands that I work with to get them content, right? Like I take pictures, I gotta do reels and shit.
Right.
And so like I'm down to have like bugs on it for some points, but then when I get to certain points where I know this is going to be an epic photo, I need it to look presentable.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be perfect.
Good. Yeah, right.
But it needs to be presentable enough to get good photos, to capture what I'm doing, to give to these brands, and to give for me to post online.
Right.
I love the bug ones. The bug ones are perfect. Like we on that trip, we rode from Salt Lake.
Yeah, I can see one.
You can see a lot of that. We all hit a fucking power wash spot. That's washed. And on James's bike, the blue one, you can see the bugs still on it all over the place.
Oh yeah, man. That's when you know you're riding them, though.
Cody's bike, though, he has the flannel. He's the third one from the right. That whole windshield's covered in bugs. It's like, and that's washed. That's like power washed down. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, it's just the way.
But that photo right there, I mean, right there, all of us sitting there, like,
look at the background. The background alone, man.
Yeah. And honestly, the guy who took that photo was just some random guy that taking pictures.
You just hand him your camera and
No.
oh, like that was his stuff.
It was his shit.
Oh, no
I
shit.
I think I have his email because he emailed me the photo at some point, but this is going on 4 years now. He didn't really have an Instagram, so I had no way to like promote him. You know what I mean? Man, that dude right there, that guy, I've said it a million times on the podcast, but the guy that shot that of me is from Dallas, was at Monument Valley taking pictures while we were there, and I met him.
What are the chances?
And then a year later, I had him on the podcast. It wasn't a great podcast, but I had him on it. So, he chewed gum the whole time, and people got pissed.
Really?
Yeah. I learned early, like, you don't chew things or eat things on podcasts. It pisses people off. When you're in the car, you're driving, you're just going.
Constantly chewing, making noise.
Yeah, man, I was there.
That's a great photo though, dude. I love Monument Valley. That's like one of my favorite places on the planet.
That whole night, that was one of the most epic nights. We on that trip, we also camped at Monument Valley, but we didn't see some cool photographer there to take pictures of us. But oh man, you never know what's going to be the most amazing trips of your life until you take some trips.
You just got to do it, right?
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, even with our trip last year, it was like one of those things. It was like a surreal moment, like especially when you're closing in on your destination.
Yeah.
And if it's a far one,
Do you get like fucking hyped up, like, fuck yeah, we made it,
dude, I can't even tell you,
like you start giving people like devil horns and shit, like, fuck yeah, let's go. It was 666, motherfucker.
It was late, The last fuel stop, it was so hot that day. We're getting fuel. Everybody's just beat, like. Dude. Kevin, Cowboy, I'm looking at their face. You're just like, man, he was so hot.
I don't think I have a picture of it, but the COVID year, Sturgis COVID year, right? So the year that I guess you guys
20.
Yeah. For 80th. Some reason, you were on that trip with us, right? When we were coming into Chadron or where the fuck we stayed in that hotel on the way to Sturgis, and the sun was setting perfectly. That's when Friends got the ticket.
Yeah.
We were on the home stretch to the hotel, and we all just got hyped. We're all fucking cameras out, fucking selfieing on the road. We're all fucking standing up going, fuck yeah. Like, we're woo girling it up, dude, like ready to party, dude. And it's like that thing, like you're coming in, like you're like, fuck, we did it today. We did it.
Right. Yeah, like you made it, man. Like all that seat time. It's like, dude, people you talk to that just don't get it, like, they ride, 50, 60 miles, like, oh, my butt hurts, I'm done, It's like, and then you just went all the way across country. I mean, it's a feeling no other. And, like, growing up, like we were talking earlier, like, I grew up watching, like, Easy Rider and, like, the Wild Ones, Marlon Brando, and all those old school movies and stuff, and it's like watching, like, biker build off, and when they get done building a bike, they ride across country or whatever.
Yep. That's
what inspired me. So, like, now we're out here doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's a dream come true. It slaps you right in the face. It's like that Highway 50. I'll be honest with you, man. First time we got on that and we started hitting that scenery and, like, stuff from the movies. I was like, it was like, it was emotional. I was like, holy cow, we're out here doing this.
It was Alliance, Nebraska. We stayed at the first
Alliance.
year.
Alliance? I used to work in Alliance all the time.
There is fucking trains out the ass right there.
Dude, a huge hub. That was. I worked in Alliance all the time.
There's like one decent ass hotel right there on the fucking main drag.
Yep.
And
That's probably where I stayed.
This picture.
I took that picture with friends right there.
Okay.
He just got a ticket right there.
Dude, yeah.
But that's taking like, dude, that's what I mean, that's what photography brings, because right now, if those were all videos on the wall,
You never see them.
you never see them, man. Photography will never fucking die.
No, it can't,
You know what I mean?
because it's like it captures that one moment. You know, it's like you can't have a bunch of videos just playing on.
Like, we were sitting in this room and I had like just looped videos going on. And you were
Yeah.
like, dude,
Probably having seizures.
this shit's tripping me out,
Yeah,
dude. Like,
right.
I feel like I'm in this looping version of the Matrix. It's like bullshit. But you see shit on the wall and it becomes a conversation. It becomes a situation. And one of the I love that David Mann photo where that dude's getting out of jail and he's got the chick out there flashing him with the whiskey bottle and the bike ready to go.
David Mann photos like completely sum up like Dream World. You know, it's like everything, all his stuff.
Yeah.
I loved it. I had this picture. What's the one that can't remember what it's called. The one he's on the shovelhead, the hardtail riding across the desert. It's actually out in like Utah, and the cowboys and the ghosts in the background.
That's Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, yeah,
Yeah.
dude. That's like the most iconic. Like
For
that's
sure.
I love that.
They redid that in the Ghost Rider movie,
Yeah.
in
Yep.
the whole fucking setup. So
I
yeah,
freaking love that.
that one's amazing. Well, dude, we did
Awesome.
it. I fucking had fun with you, man.
Yeah, it was good.
We did half a bottle of Chivas.
Chivas. It was good.
Chivas. Well, dude, I'm
like
pretty
it.
stoked, man. Thank you, dude. You leaned into this podcast. You came down. You sat in the studio. You fucking made it a great time.
Hey, I
Great
appreciate
story.
it.
I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime.
Oh yeah.
If you guys aren't already following, give this guy a follow. It's Action 88 Jackson, but swap that C with an X on the Action.
I had to retype it a couple times. to
Yeah,
figure it out.
C.
Just type in Sean Jackson, it'll pop up.
Yeah, C was taken. It's a common name. My high school gym teacher gave me that name.
Yeah, well, we used to have Jim Jackson was a basketball player for Dallas, and his nickname was Action Jackson.
Oh, really?
And he's from like Ohio, so
Really?
Yeah.
No shit.
well, cool, man. Thanks.
No problem, man.
See you later, brother.